Night fell, and the city's exhausted workers began their real lives. I found myself at Ruth Bar, a place famous in Jiangxing for its strong drinks and easy hookups. It was a breeding ground for one-night stands, a place where people came specifically to find a spark of passion to drown out their daily grind. I sat in a dim corner. I was 26, unemployed, and currently going by the name Yahello. I wasn't there to pick anyone up. I just wanted a drink to soothe my boredom. I pulled a pack of Hongtishan cigarettes from my pocket, flicked the bottom of the box with my thumb, and caught the single filtered tip that popped out. I lit it. I took a long, deep drag and let the smoke swirl around my face. A faint, crooked smile played on my lips. My black hair fell naturally over my forehead, slightly curled, giving me a lazy, unbothered look. Suddenly, something caught my eye. At a booth not far away, a man was surreptitiously dropping a pill into a woman's drink. She didn't notice. She took a sip, and within minutes, she slumped over, unconscious. I scoffed. If you can't get a girl through your own charm, using drugs is just pathetic. I'm not usually the type to meddle in other people's business, but I couldn't just sit there and watch this happen. A group of men with ridiculous, brightly colored hair stood up and grabbed her, preparing to leave. As they passed my table, I got a better look at her. She was dressed like a professional office lady in a black and white outfit. A tight black skirt hugged her curves, transitioning into long, pale legs and black high heels. Her hair was a messy curtain over her face, but even without seeing her eyes, her figure told me she was a beauty. If I hadn't seen them spike her drink, her night would have ended in a nightmare. "What are you looking at?" A guy with a red afro barked. He was incredibly arrogant. "I got this girl first. Don't even think about it. Keep staring, and I'll gouge your eyes out." Scram. I smiled faintly and stood up, blocking their path. I didn't know her, but my conscience wouldn't let me step aside. The guy turned red with rage. He poked my chest hard with his finger. "Are you deaf?" I said, "Get lost." "I'd advise you not to point that finger at me," I said, my eyes narrowing. "Oh yeah? I'll poke you, and I'll break you. You think I'm joking?" "I do. Damn you. You think you're special?" He swung a heavy fist right at my face. I let out a cold laugh. He was slow. I reached out with one hand and caught his fist midair. He glared at me, reeking of alcohol. "Let go of me, or I'll make sure you leave here in an ambulance." "You know what I hate the most?" I asked, my voice dropping an octave. "What?" "I hate being threatened." My expression turned cold, my eyes like shards of ancient ice. I twisted his wrist with a sharp, sudden motion. A loud crack echoed through the bar. The man shrieked in agony, clutching his mangled wrist as he collapsed. "Kill him. I'll take the blame," he screamed through gritted teeth. Another guy with a mohawk pulled a dagger from his belt. He lunged at me with a snarl. "You dare hit my boss? You're dead. With those skills? You shouldn't play with knives," I mocked. My arm moved in a blur. Before he could even blink, the dagger was in my hand. "Hey, where's my knife?" He stared at his empty palm, confused. "Right here," I said, twirling the blade. "Let me show you how to actually use one." My gaze sharpened. I flicked the dagger toward his head. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Cold flashes of steel danced around his scalp. He turned pale, frozen in fear, eyes shut tight as he felt the air move around his skin. A few seconds later, I pulled back and blew a few stray hairs off the blade. "There, that haircut looks much better on you." "Haircut." He reached up and felt his head. His mohawk was completely gone, shaved clean to the scalp. I took a little off the top, I smirked. Then, I buried my foot in his stomach. He gasped, his eyes nearly popping out of his head, his mouth wide enough to swallow an egg. He hit the floor and blacked out instantly. The first man, the leader, was fuming. He ignored his broken wrist and swung a desperate kick at me. "I'll kill you." I didn't flinch. I caught his leg easily and, without warning, delivered a brutal kick straight to his groin. The scream that followed was bone-chilling. It was so loud the entire bar went silent. Every man watching winced, feeling a sympathetic chill between their own legs. That kick was heartless. Only one lackey was left standing, still holding the unconscious woman. He had literally wet his pants. "You want to turn?" I asked, beckoning him with a crooked finger. "No, no way." He dropped the woman like a hot coal and bolted for the exit. "Hey, Is that any way to treat a lady? I lunged forward to catch her before she hit the floor. As I grabbed her, my hand landed somewhere soft. It felt good. The woman let out a soft, melodic moan. The drugs seemed to be shifting her state. Instead of just being asleep, she started clinging to me, her body pressing against mine. She was being incredibly forward. My eyes widened. Wait, lady, hold on. One more thing. I grabbed an empty liquor bottle from a nearby table and hurled it. It sailed through the air and caught the fleeing lackey right in the back of the head. He crumpled into a heap, bleeding and unconscious. With the thugs dealt with, I looked down at the woman in my arms. Her eyes were glazed, wandering over me like I was prey. She wrapped her arms around my neck and started kissing me passionately. I was stunned. I'm a healthy, red-blooded man, and having a beautiful woman throw herself at me like this was a lot to handle. Fine, I muttered, my heart racing. If you're going to be this persistent, I'm not a saint. Let's find a room. The next morning, the sun crept through the window of a budget hotel. I was lying naked in bed, squinting against the light. I reached out, but the spot next to me was empty. I heard a sharp exhale from across the room. I sat up and looked toward the sound. A pair of pale, slender fingers held a Marlboro cigarette. Smoke drifted between us, blurring the air. Through the haze, I saw her face. She had a perfect jawline that would make any movie star jealous, but her expression was like ice. Her eyes were cold, framed by long, curled lashes. She wore bright red lipstick that only emphasized her freezing temperament. Beautiful. I thought you'd already left, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. She didn't smile. She crushed the cigarette out and looked at me with total indifference. Get up, she said. I'm naked, I pointed out. I said get up. She reached into her LV bag and pulled out a pair of sharp scissors. My blood ran cold. Well, lady, we're both adults here. We had some fun, right? Put the scissors down. Don't do anything impulsive. She didn't say a word. She just stepped closer, her face like stone. I didn't wait for a second invitation. I grabbed the bedsheet, wrapped it around my waist, and scrambled to the corner of the room. Then, I watched in silence. She didn't come for me. Instead, she used the scissors to cut a small, blood-stained circle out of the white sheet. She tucked the fabric into her bag. I froze. She was a virgin? Last night, she had been so aggressive, so wild. I figured she was a regular at the club. I never expected this. She reached into her wallet and tossed 100 yuan bills onto the bed. Take this. Forget last night ever happened. It was just a dream. Wait, what is this for? I asked, feeling a bit insulted. I'm not a gigolo. Whether you take it or not is your business, she snapped. Before I could explain myself, she turned on her heel and walked out. I stood there for a few seconds, stunned. Was she frigid? No, definitely not last night. Women are strange creatures. I didn't know it yet, but Yang Ruobing was in a daze. She had been drugged at the bar by those thugs, and she'd only gone there to lose her virginity to a stranger out of spite. Her family was forcing her to marry a man she hated. This was her way of getting even. I dressed quickly and chased after her. I wasn't going to let her just pay me off like that. By the time I reached the hotel entrance, I saw a black Mercedes parked at the curb. A man in a sharp suit was shouting at her. Ruobing, where were you? He barked. Our wedding is tomorrow. I've been looking everywhere for you. This had to be Zhang Zijian, the fiancée. She looked at him like he was a piece of trash. I was at a bar. Then I went to a hotel with a stranger. The guy's face turned a deep shade of purple. The veins on his forehead looked like they were about to burst. You went to a hotel? You're marrying me tomorrow. Why would you betray me? Because I don't want to marry you, she said calmly. He lost it. Your grandfather promised you to me. You have no choice. Look at me, Zhang Zijian, she sneered. I'm not clean anymore. Do you still want me? He let out a roar of pure rage. You shameless woman. Tell me, who was he? Who was the bastard? He grabbed her arm, his grip tight enough to leave bruises. He's gone, she said, wincing. I don't even know his name. Tell me where he is, or I'll make you regret it. He raised his hand, ready to slap her across the face. All his gentlemanly act vanished in an instant. I didn't think. I stepped forward and caught his wrist midair. He froze, looking at me with pure confusion. Who the hell are you? Get lost. I flashed a wicked grin. I think I'm the bastard you were just screaming about. His eyes nearly popped out of his head. You? Yeah, I said, leaning in. I slept with your fiancée last night. I gave you a nice green hat to wear. I hope you don't mind. I turned to Yang Ruobing and shoved the 1,000 yuan back into her hand. Here, I'm not a charity case. Zhang Zijian was shaking with fury. You think this is funny? You slept with my woman and you're not sorry. I shrugged. Not really. What's your name, you son of a bitch? He screamed. My name is Yi, I said smoothly. Yi. Yi, he repeated, confused. Yeah, I grinned. Good grandson. You're so polite. It took him a second to realize I'd just tricked him into calling me grandpa. His face went from purple to black. You're dead. If I don't kill you, my name isn't Zhang Zijian, he hissed, his face twisting into something demonic. He drew back his arm, channeling every ounce of his fury into a heavy punch aimed straight for my jaw. Thud. The sound was dull and heavy. I didn't flinch. My hand was up, my palm wrapped firmly around his fist, stopping his momentum dead. I looked him in the eye and flashed a grin. Look, man, I said, my voice smooth. We're both civilized people. All this fighting and killing, it's just so violent. What if we scare the beautiful lady? To hell with you. Go eat shit. Zhang Zijian screamed, completely losing his gentlemanly facade. He swung his other fist wildly at my head. Thud. I caught that one too. Now I had both his hands pinned. He struggled, his face turning a deep shade of purple. You bastard. Let go of me, he barked. Do you even know who my father is? I don't know who your father is, I replied, my smile fading. But I know your attitude makes me really uncomfortable. Without warning, I drove my knee upward, slamming it hard into his stomach. Zhang Zijian let out a squeal like a stuck pig. His eyes nearly bulged out of his head as he doubled over, gasping for air. But I wasn't done with him yet. I grabbed him by the collar with one hand and used the other to deliver a stinging slap across his face. Slap. A bright red handprint bloomed on his cheek. He looked at me, stunned, his face burning. You actually dare to hit me? You're dead. You're a dead man. Hit you? I'm just getting started, I said. I hate being threatened more than anything. Slap. You what? You're going to what? I mocked him, swinging my hand back and forth, rhythmically hitting him. This one is for the lady. This one is for me. And this one is just because. Asterisk slap. 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 Asterisk. By the time I stopped, Zhang Zijian was seeing stars, his head lolling as he struggled to tell north from south. Enough, Yang Ruobing said from the side. She looked worried, probably thinking I was going to kill him. Stop hitting him. I looked at her. Are you still angry, beautiful? I'm fine, she muttered. All right then. I'll just throw out the trash. I hauled Zhang Zijian over to a nearby large trash can, flipped the lid open, and stuffed him inside. I slammed the lid shut with a satisfying bang and dusted off my hands, feeling pretty good about myself. From inside the bin, muffled screams and frantic banging echoed out. Let me out. Help. Somebody help me. Yang Ruobing walked over, her brow furrowed. Do you have any idea who he is? I folded my arms behind my head, acting casual. No clue. I just know he tried to hit you. She paused, a flicker of surprise crossing her cold, elegant face. You did that because he tried to hit me? Yeah, I said. Are you moved? No. I felt a bit deflated. She really was a block of ice. He's from the Zhang family, she said, her expression turning grave. You hit him. You might not live to see the sun tomorrow. I pretended to gasp, putting on a look of pure terror. Oh no, really? What should I do? Come with me, she sighed, thinking for a moment. I'll find a way to get you out of Jiangxing City. Fast. She clearly felt responsible for me getting dragged into her mess. She figured if the Zhang family caught me, I'd be lucky to end up in one piece. Her plan was to smuggle me out of the city and as far away as possible. 30 minutes later, we arrived at her villa. I followed her inside, feeling like a country bumpkin entering a palace. The place was massive, decorated with a clean, sophisticated style that screamed old money. So, beautiful, I asked, looking around. Which rich family do you belong to? Why do you live in a place this big all by yourself? My father left it to me before he passed, she said shortly. I usually live here with my cousin. And the rest of your family? She shot me a look. Are you running a background check on me? I rubbed my nose, laughing awkwardly. Just curious. You'll stay here for now, she decided. When the timing is right, I'll get you out of the city. I leaned against a wall, giving her a wicked little smirk. Just the two of us in a big house? Aren't you afraid of me, hey? Yang Ruobing didn't blink. She reached into her bag and pulled out those silver scissors again, snapping them open and shut with a sharp snip-snip. I live on the second floor. You live down here. If you take one step up those stairs, I'll make sure you never worry about women again. Hey, it was a joke. I raised my hands in surrender. Don't take it seriously. My name is Yang Ruobing, she said, turning away. Stop calling me beautiful. It's low class. Can I call you Bing Bing then? You can try, she replied coldly. All right, Ruobing it is. Put the scissors away, you'll scare someone. She didn't answer. She just walked upstairs, her silhouette looking like a lonely goddess. I watched her go, feeling a bit conflicted. A one-night stand with a virgin, and now I was living in her house. Life was unpredictable. She was stunning, sure, but if only she weren't so cold. An hour later, Yang Ruobing came back downstairs. She had changed into a sharp, professional OL suit. Her makeup was flawless, highlighting her delicate features while maintaining that icy, untouchable aura. I'm going to work, she said. Don't wander off. Got it, I shrugged. I felt a bit like a kept man, but I wasn't complaining. She drove off in her Audi Q7, a powerful, aggressive car that matched her personality perfectly. I spent the next few hours lounging around the villa, watching movies and killing time. Suddenly, a loud commotion broke out at the front gate. Yang Ruobing, you bitch. Get out here right now, a voice screamed. I stood up, stretching my limbs. Now who could that be? I walked outside and saw a group of men waiting. One of them pointed at me, his face turning red with rage. You're actually here. Oh, do we know each other? I asked, genuinely surprised. Screw you. You hit me in the face, and now you're playing dumb. Zhang Zijian pointed at his swollen, bruised cheek. He looked like he was about to explode. He had clearly come here to demand an explanation from Yang Ruobing, but finding me here was the icing on the cake. Oh, it's you, I said, the realization hitting me. I gave him a playful look. What's up? You need something? Zhang Hai, that's him. That's the kid who hit me. Zhang Zijian barked, his voice trembling with hate. Teach him a lesson. I want both his hands broken. A man in his 40s stepped forward. He was massive, nearly 6'3", with a broad chest and a face like a stone wall. He looked like an elite special forces veteran. Zhang Hai glanced at me, his eyes filled with disdain. I was average height and didn't look like much of a threat to him. Kid, he said deeply, I don't fight nobodies. Give me your name. Yahello, I replied. Yahello? Never heard of you. You picked the wrong person to mess with today. Is that so? I smirked, curling my finger at him in a come-at-me gesture. You want to fight? Then let's go. Zhang Hai's eyes flashed with killing intent. He roared and lunged forward, his footsteps heavy and fast. He threw a massive punch aimed straight for my chest. There was real power behind it. He wasn't just some street thug. Not bad, I whispered, the corner of my mouth twitching into a smile. I calmly stepped back, easily dodging his heavy fist. Zhang Hai's eyes widened in total shock. I could tell what he was thinking. That punch had been perfect in terms of power, speed, and timing. To him, it should have been unavoidable. Yet, I had neutralized it without breaking a sweat. Zhang Hai, what are you waiting for? Kill him. Zhang Zijian screamed from the sidelines, his voice cracking with desperation. Zhang Hai gritted his teeth and surged forward with renewed intensity. He lunged at me, throwing a flurry of wild, powerful punches. Bang, bang, bang. He looked like a madman, forcing me to retreat step by step. Seeing this, Zhang Zijian started pumping his fists in excitement. Yes, just like that. Beat him to death. I let out a soft breath as Zhang Hai's arm whipped forward, aiming a lethal blow directly at my face. I swayed back, moving with fluid grace, and the wind from his fist whistled past my nose. After that round of intense attacking, Zhang Hai was gasping for air. His iron fists were heavy, and sweat poured down his face. I, on the other hand, hadn't broken a single bead of sweat. I stood there, looking completely relaxed. Yahello, if you have any respect for me, use your full strength. Zhang Hai barked, his face flushing with anger. Stop playing around. What? He's playing with you? Zhang Zijian stammered, his jaw dropping. Zhang Hai was one of the top fighters in the Zhang family, yet he couldn't even touch me. Oh, you noticed? I gave a thin smile. I let the playfulness fade from my expression, and my eyes turned sharp, cutting through the air like a hunting hawk. Fine. If that's what you want, then take this. I stepped forward. It looked like a simple, slow punch, but it carried a hidden, lethal force. Zhang Hai froze. His brain couldn't even process the speed of the impact. Crack. The sound of his nose bones snapping echoed through the air. He let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was sent flying. He slammed into the car behind him so hard the windshield shattered into a spiderweb of cracks. Zhang Hai, Zhang Zijin shrieked. But when he looked over, he realized his bodyguard was out cold. One punch was all it took. Zhang Zijin's legs turned to jelly. He started trembling uncontrollably, and a wet, yellow stain spread across his crotch. He had actually peed himself. I put on my most innocent, harmless expression and took a step toward him. Young Master Zhang, are you afraid of me? I teased. Don, don't come any closer, he stammered, his face pale as a ghost. I'm a member of the Zhang family. If you touch me, they'll never let you go. I leaned in, my eyes cold enough to freeze his blood. The Zhang family? If you piss me off enough, I'll wipe your entire family off the map. Believe me. He shivered, feeling like he'd been dropped into a pit of ice. He realized then that I wasn't just some thug, I was a monster. He wasn't stupid. If Zhang Hai couldn't stop me, he stood no chance. You just wait. Yi, he hissed through chattering teeth. I'll be back. With that, he turned and bolted like a wounded dog. I watched him run, feeling a surge of annoyance. Running away is one thing, but don't threaten me while you do it. I reached down, picked up a loose brick from the garden path, and weighed it in my hand. Then, I took aim and hurled it like a cannonball. A sharp scream cut through the air as the brick connected squarely with the back of his head. Blood sprayed, and he tumbled over, clutching his skull. Even more useless than your old man, I muttered with a disdainful laugh. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. It rang a few times before a trembling voice answered. How good? Old Zhang, I said casually. Is your son's name Zhang Zijin? Yes, why? What happened? Nothing much. We had a bit of a disagreement, and I accidentally gave him a bit of a beating. You don't mind, do you? That brat provoked you. Old Zhang's voice shifted instantly to terror. How good, I don't mind at all. Thank you for teaching my son a lesson. I'm grateful. Haha, you're too polite, I said and hung up. A few minutes later, the bloody Zhang Zijin received a call from his father, Zhang Yishan. He started wailing into the phone immediately. Dad, someone broke my head open. You have to get justice for me. Justice my ass, his father roared. So what if your head is broken? Do you know how I lost my leg? I don't know. Yi Yahello broke it. You could have messed with anyone, but you chose him? You're going to get me killed. Zhang Zijin froze. He remembered his father's leg being broken 10 years ago. If I was 26 now, that meant I was only 16 when I crippled his father. The realization hit him like a physical blow. What kind of demon was I? Around noon, Yang Ruobing drove her Audi Q7 back to the villa. She looked tense, her mind clearly elsewhere. Hey, beautiful. You're back. I greeted her. She gave a distracted nod and sat down. Her cold, elegant face was unreadable, but she remained silent for a long time. Something wrong? I asked. The Zhang family canceled the engagement, she said suddenly. An hour ago, her grandfather had called her, fuming with rage because the Zhangs had backed out. She had told him she didn't know why, but I knew exactly why. Zhang Yishan had realized I was the man she was with, and he was too terrified to become my rival. I wasn't going to tell her that, though. I wanted a quiet life now. My past glories were supposed to stay in the past. Maybe the guy couldn't handle being cheated on. I joked. Maybe, she replied, her expression grim. Well, look at the bright side. You're free now, right? No, she shook her head. The Yang family in the capital is facing a financial crisis. They need a marriage alliance for support. Now that Zhang Zijin is out, there will just be a Li Zijin or a Lin Zijin next. So, she trailed off. So what? I need to find a man to marry. Great idea, I said. Get married and stop the forced dates. Wait, why are you staring at me like that? You don't mean... Yes, she said firmly. That man is you. I jumped back, waving my hands. Wait. That was a one-night stand. I'm not marrying you. I love being single. I can go wherever I want, do whatever I want. You feel it's a burden to marry me? She asked, a hint of genuine anger flashing across her cold face. She was confident in her beauty and her status, yet here I was, acting like she was a plague. She took a few deep breaths to calm herself. Listen to me. We'll be a married couple, but it'll be fake. We won't interfere in each other's private lives. Other than letting my grandfather know we're married, you aren't allowed to tell anyone that you're my husband, Yang Ruobing stated firmly. Oh, I get it, I said, leaning back. A fake marriage. Exactly. And I'll pay you 500,000. After 1 year, we get a divorce and end the whole thing. Are you willing? I'm willing. I didn't even have to think about it. I agreed instantly. Yang Ruobing blinked, her eyes narrowing as if she realized she'd just walked into a trap. She probably figured I'd only agreed because of the money, knowing she was desperate enough to ask. She gave me a silent, cold look. You're very cunning. I have to be, I chuckled. Getting 500,000 for doing nothing? Only a fool would say no. Plus, she promised not to interfere with my private life. I love that part. I couldn't help but grin like a villain who had just won the lottery. Boring, she muttered. It's not boring, I countered. It's called having style. By 3 in the afternoon, the two of us walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Yang Ruobing looked down at the little red marriage certificate in her hand and let out a bitter laugh. I doubt she ever imagined her life would end up like this. Hey, beautiful, oh wait. I should call you wifey now, I teased, wearing a mischievous smirk. Since we're a couple, your husband here will work hard to earn money and support the family. A faint blush crept onto her cold face, but it was from anger, not romance. Yahello, you are absolutely not allowed to call me that in public. Do you understand? But we have the certificate. It's real. The paper is real, but the marriage is fake. Well, that won't do, I said, shrugging my shoulders. Since we're still at the bureau, let's just go back inside and get a divorce right now. What kind of marriage is this if I can't even call you wifey? I made a move as if I was really going back in. You. She bit her lip, her fists clenched tight as she suppressed her rage. She couldn't let me divorce her yet, not after all this trouble. Finally, she exhaled and looked at me with a look of pure defeat. Fine, you can call me that, but only at home. Now we're talking, I said, satisfied. By the way, when do I get my 500,000? You'll come work at my company. I'll pay you back over the next 3 years. My jaw dropped. Hey, that's cheating. How is that any different from just having a normal job? In a high-cost city like Jiangcheng, 50,000 a year was just an average salary. I realized then that I was the one who had been played. So what if I'm cheating? She actually let out a faint, triumphant smile. It was the first time I'd seen her look happy, even if it was just because she'd gotten revenge on me. The certificates are signed. We are legally husband and wife. You're ruthless, I stammered, pointing a finger at her. I try, she said softly, turning her back on me and walking away. I stood there, feeling like I was about to cough up blood from frustration. But as I watched her beautiful figure walk toward her car, my expression slowly settled. I pulled a pack of cheap cigarettes from my pocket and lit one. I took a deep drag, letting the smoke swirl around my face. I wanted a quiet life, didn't I? Maybe this was exactly what I needed. The world knew me as a legendary soldier, a god of war, but right now, I was just Yahello. Yang Ruobing noticed I wasn't following and looked back. For a second, she froze. She saw me standing there in the smoke, looking lonely and weathered, like a man who had seen too much of the world. She wondered if I had some secret past she didn't know about. Hey, what are you staring at? She called out. I snapped out of it instantly. The loneliness vanished, replaced by my usual lazy, playboy grin. I was just wondering if we're going to have a wedding night tonight, wifey. You rogue, she snapped, turning away. She convinced herself she'd just imagined that look of sorrow on my face. There was no depth to me. I was just a loudmouthed jerk. How am I a rogue for wanting to sleep with my wife? I yelled after her. Don't call me that outside. Fine, I'll call you it at home. Hey, wifey, don't start the car yet. I'm not in. She didn't listen. She hopped into her Audi Q7 and slammed on the gas, leaving me in a cloud of exhaust. Damn it, I don't have any money on me. You want me to walk back? I chased the car for a few steps, but it was already gone. By the time I made it back to the villa, it was after 6 in the evening. I walked in and saw Yang Ruobing sitting on the sofa, calmly watching a movie. Wife, that was cruel, I grumbled. Leaving me on the road like that? I had to walk all the way back. I'm exhausted. Exhausted? You're standing right there, aren't you? She said without looking up. Don't you feel any pity for your husband? No, because I knew you had the strength to make it back. I was speechless. This woman was ice cold. My cousin is coming over soon, she said. We'll go out to eat then. But I'm warning you, don't even think about hitting on her. She gave me a sharp, serious look. Hey, a rabbit doesn't eat the grass near its own burrow, I protested. Do I look like that kind of guy? Yes. Fine, forget I said anything. I sighed. Anyway, since you owe me money, let's not waste it on a restaurant. I'll cook at home. The money we save can go toward paying me back sooner. She looked at me, surprised. You can cook. Of course. I'm a master in the kitchen and a gentleman in the living room. I can even warm the bed if you need it. Want me to show you tonight? No thank you, she said, her face returning to its usual mask of indifference. The kitchen is over there. Get to work. One love dinner coming right up. I headed into the kitchen. 30 minutes later, a mouth-watering aroma began to drift through the house. Yang Ruobing's nose twitched. She looked toward the kitchen, genuinely impressed. Maybe this guy actually had some talent. Just then, the front door swung open. Cousin, what is that smell? It's amazing. Kiki, you're back, Yang Ruobing greeted her. A girl in a sailor-style school uniform walked in, swinging her backpack and sucking on a lollipop. She had cute mushroom-style hair and round, rosy cheeks that made her look like an adorable doll. Cousin, you didn't answer me. Where's that smell coming from? Did you hire a professional chef? Lin Kiki asked, her eyes wide with excitement. It's not a chef, Yang Ruobing said. It's... Yang Ruobing was about to explain when I walked out of the kitchen, balancing a plate of fragrant stir-fried shredded pork and potatoes. Whoa, cousin, who's the master chef? Lin Kiki asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Yang Ruobing hesitated for a second. She knew we were all living under the same roof now. There was no point in hiding the truth. He's your brother-in-law. What? Brother-in-law? Keek's mouth fell open, so wide her lollipop tumbled out and hit the floor. She didn't even notice. She just stared at me like I was an alien. That's right, I chimed in. We got married today. Oh my god, weren't you supposed to marry Zhang Zijin tomorrow? Why the sudden swap? Kiki was vibrating with shock. Yang Ruobing shot me a look, signaling me to play along. She called off the engagement, she said coolly. I found the person I truly belong with. Exactly, I added, catching her drift. Your cousin and I are madly in love. It's a real romance, haha. Kiki frowned, looking back and forth between us. But I've never even heard of you before. Oh, that's because your cousin had a massive crush on me back in school. I lied through my teeth, keeping a perfectly straight face. I finally came back, and she just had to marry me. Right, Ruobing? I glanced at her. I saw her eyes flash with fury. Her small fists clenched for a moment before she forced herself to relax. She suppressed the urge to strangle me and nodded. Yes, I practically begged him to marry me. Holy crap, cousin, you're so fierce. Kiki laughed, staring at Yang Ruobing like she was seeing her for the first time. I never knew you were so bold. Stop talking and go wash your hands. It's time to eat, Yang Ruobing said, desperately trying to change the subject. Yay, food. Kiki was a total foodie. She forgot her shock instantly and skipped toward the kitchen like a happy little bird. The second she was out of earshot, Yang Ruobing turned on me. Yahello, what was that? A crush? On you? Hey, just a joke. Don't take it seriously, I said, rubbing my nose with a smirk. Don't make stupid jokes like that again. I shrugged, feeling pretty good about myself. If she wanted to play the cold CEO game, I had plenty of ways to mess with her. Dinner was a hit. Kiki couldn't stop praising my cooking, telling Yang Ruobing how lucky she was to have a personal chef for a husband. Half an hour later, Kiki leaned back, patting her slightly bloated stomach with a look of pure bliss. Cousin, you didn't just find a husband. You found a 5-star chef. 100 points for you. Yang Ruobing wiped her lips gracefully with a tissue. Even her finger movements looked like art. Is that so? Definitely. Kiki nodded. Then, a thought struck her. Wait. Since you guys are married now, I can't sleep in your room anymore, right? I don't want to make my new brother-in-law angry. She gave me a mischievous wink. Right, brother-in-law? Me? Angry? No way. I started. Your cousin told me to sleep on the... Suddenly, I felt a sharp kick under the table. Yang Ruobing's foot connected with my shin. Right, your brother-in-law and I are sleeping together tonight. Yang Ruobing interrupted quickly. Kiki, you'll stay on the first floor. She had originally planned to banish me to the downstairs guest room, but if we did that now, Kiki would definitely smell a rat. Kiki pouted, a bit disappointed, but she accepted it. After I finished the dishes, Kiki disappeared into her room to play on her computer. The living room was empty. I leaned toward Yang Ruobing with a wicked grin. So, wife, are we really sleeping together tonight? Shut up. If we don't, she'll get suspicious, she snapped, glancing toward the stairs. Understood. I couldn't help but laugh. Was I actually going to spend the night in the Ice Queen's bedroom? What are you laughing at? She asked suspiciously. Nothing. Did I laugh? Yes. You look like you're plotting something sinister. By 11 p.m., the house was quiet. Yang Ruobing stood up, her face a mask of indifference. Follow me upstairs. The way she said it sounded cold, but the words themselves were enough to make my heart race. Coming, wife. As we headed up, Keek's door cracked open just an inch. Her cute, mischievous face peeked out. Cousin is so cold. I wonder what actually happens during their wedding night. Time for some spying, she whispered to herself, sneaking down the hall behind us. Inside Yang Ruobing's room, everything was white. White furniture, white curtains, white bedding. It matched her icy personality perfectly. The air smelled faintly of jasmine. It was refreshing. I didn't hesitate. I threw my arms out and collapsed onto the massive, soft bed. Man, this is nice. Get up. Her voice was like a blizzard. What? Wife, you said we were sleeping together. Why am I getting up? I never said we were sharing the bed. I sleep on the bed. You sleep on the floor. I sat up, indignant. The floor? Come on, it's our wedding night. You have the heart to make your husband sleep on the floor? Yes. I was speechless. I thought I might have a chance at some romance, but this woman was made of stone. I'm counting to 3. If you aren't off my bed, don't blame me for what happens. She had a serious germophobia issue. There was no way she was letting a stranger touch her sheets. I'm not moving. You can't make me. 3, 2, 1. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a pair of razor-sharp scissors. I scrambled off the bed so fast I almost tripped. Whoa, relax. Put the blades away. That's attempted murder. Vulgar, she muttered, tucking the scissors back into the drawer. I sighed and looked at the floor. Luckily, there was a thick wool rug. It wasn't a mattress, but it wasn't the worst place I'd slept. Just as I was about to settle in, I heard a faint sound. Footsteps, and they stopped right outside the door. I froze. Someone was listening. I held up a finger to my lips, signaling Yang Ruobing to be quiet. What is it? She whispered, her brow furrowing. Someone's eavesdropping, I breathed. She looked toward the gap under the door. A shadow was blocking the light from the hallway. It had to be Kiki. That girl is too much, Yang Ruobing whispered, shaking her head. She knew her cousin was a prankster, but she hadn't expected her to actually spy on us. What if she suspects something? She probably does, I whispered back. We need to give her a show. How? I gave her a wicked grin. Stop being so mean and play along. I grinned at Yang Ruobing, leaning in close with a playful smirk. How about we just make this fake marriage real? We could start our wedding night right now. You rogue. Yang Ruobing's face flushed a deep crimson. She glared at me, her eyes shooting sparks. Don't get the wrong idea, I said, quickly waving my hands. I mean, we need to put on a show to fool Kiki. If we don't, she'll suspect something. How do we put on a show? She asked, looking confused. By making some noise, I said. I let out a low, suggestive groan, mimicking the kind of sounds people make behind closed doors. Oh yeah, like that. You disgusting man. She looked at me with pure disbelief. There was no way a woman as cold and dignified as her was going to make noises like that. Look, wife, your cousin is right outside, I whispered, my voice turning serious. If we don't make this convincing and she finds out the truth, she'll tell your grandfather. You want to be forced into another marriage by him. I shrugged, acting like I was only doing this for her sake. But, she stammered, her resolve wavering. Don't be so stiff. Just follow my lead and learn a few sounds, I said, feeling like a wolf coaxing a lamb. Fine, she sighed, forced into a corner. The thought of her grandfather's nagging was clearly worse than the embarrassment. Teach me. It's simple. Just follow me. Ah, just keep that tone. Louder now. Ah, she yelped. Louder. She let out a sharper cry, and I couldn't help but laugh. Wow, wife, that sound makes my heart melt. You've got real potential. You were playing with me. Her face went from red to purple with rage. She realized I was just teasing her. Before I could react, she grabbed a pillow and lunged at me. You total jerk. I'll kill you. She started swinging the pillow wildly, raining blows down on me as if she were venting every bit of frustration she'd felt all day. Ow. Wife, take it easy. Don't get so excited. I shouted, dodging and weaving around the room. Outside the door, Lin Kiki stood frozen. Her jaw dropped so low it could have hit the floor. Her eyes were wide with shock. Take it easy, she whispered to herself, a devilish grin spreading across her face. My God, cousin is so aggressive. Poor brother-in-law. He's going to have a hard life from now on. Satisfied with what she'd heard, she giggled and quietly slipped away. Inside, I caught the pillow mid-swing. I gave Yang Ruobing a wink. Hey, calm down. Keek's gone. Lights out. Go to sleep, she snapped. She threw the pillow at me and slapped the light switch, plunging the room into darkness. Wife, you're really making me sleep on the floor? At least give me a blanket, I protested. No. How about a coat to cover up with? No. I felt like spitting blood. It was my wedding night, and while other men were enjoying their wives, I was shivering on a rug. I was probably the most pathetic groom in history. In the middle of the night, Yang Ruobing slowly opened her eyes. The moonlight filtered through the window, revealing me curled up in a ball on the floor, shivering slightly from the chill. She let out a tiny, almost silent sigh. She slipped out of bed, pulled a spare blanket from the wardrobe, and gently draped it over me. Then, acting as if nothing had happened, she crept back into bed. The moment she lay back down, I opened my eyes. A faint, happy smile touched my lips. I had actually been awake the second she moved. I never expected my ice-cold wife to have such a tender side. I closed my eyes again and drifted off. For a man used to the smell of gunpowder and the constant threat of death, I slept more soundly that night than I had in years. The next morning, the sun hit my eyelids and woke me up. Yang Ruobing was already at her vanity, applying makeup. The subtle foundation made her skin glow, and her natural eyebrows gave her face a sharp, commanding look. When she applied a coat of deep red lipstick, she looked absolutely intoxicating. Morning, wife, I said, stretching my limbs. She grunted, not looking away from the mirror. Thanks for the blanket last night. You're actually pretty sweet. I didn't do it for you, she said quickly, her voice cold. I just didn't want you catching a cold and infecting me. I shrugged. I knew she was just being stubborn. She was the classic cold outside, warm inside type. There are clothes in the closet. Put them on, she said, standing up. You're coming to work with me today. She didn't wait for a response before walking out. She's beautiful, but man, she's freezing, I muttered with a wry smile. After a quick wash, I changed and headed downstairs. The family was already eating breakfast. When Lin Kiki saw me, she let out a loud whistle. Whoa, brother-in-law. I didn't realize you'd look so good in a dress shirt. I'm all right, I said, feeling myself a bit. Probably third most handsome guy in the world. I was wearing a crisp white shirt and a black suit. The fit was perfect, showing off my lean, muscular frame. I looked like a professional model. Ugh, give him a compliment and he turns into a peacock, Kiki teased, rolling her eyes. Yang Ruobing glanced up from her newspaper. The clothes fit, she said simply. Of course they do. My wife has great taste, I said, trying to suck up a little. She didn't bite, returning her gaze to the paper. Kiki leaned in then, her eyes sparkling with mischief. So, brother-in-law, you guys were pretty loud last night. You're young, but try to have some restraint, okay? I was mid-sip of my soy milk and nearly choked. I coughed, trying to look stern. Little kids shouldn't gossip. Eat your breakfast. I'm not a kid. I'm a senior in high school, she barked back. To me, you're a kid. You just like acting like a big shot because of your rank. Cousin, you should work him even harder tonight. Teach him a lesson. Yang Ruobing's face turned pink. She clearly remembered our performance from the night before. Stop talking nonsense, she said sharply. Eat. We're going to be late. An hour later, Yang Ruobing was driving her Audi Q7 toward the office with me in the passenger seat. She gave me the ground rules. I was never to call her wife at the office, and I couldn't tell anyone we were married. I agreed. She was the boss, after all. A few hundred yards from the company gates, she pulled over. Get out. What? Why here? I'm the CEO. If you're seen getting out of my car, people will talk. You need to walk the rest of the way and act like you're just showing up for an interview. She handed me a business card. Fine, fine. Acting is my specialty, I said, flicking the card and stepping out. She stepped on the gas and the Audi roared away. I shook my head. Secret marriages are a pain in the ass. I started walking. A few minutes later, I passed a bus stop just as a shifty-looking man jumped off a bus. He was clutching a woman's designer wallet. Thief! Someone stop him, a voice screamed. A high-pitched shout followed as a beautiful woman in a sharp office uniform chased after him. She was tall, with legs that seemed to go on forever. She wore black-rimmed glasses that framed a pair of clear, natural eyes. Her lips were a vivid rose red, contrasting perfectly with her crisp white shirt and pale skin. She was stunning, but she was struggling. She was wearing high heels, and chasing a thief in those is a nightmare. I watched as the thief sprinted toward me. In broad daylight. Stealing? This kid picked the wrong day to go to work. I narrowed my eyes as he got closer, shouting at the top of his lungs for me to get out of the way. Fine by me, I muttered, stepping aside. But just as he brushed past, I stuck my foot out. He didn't see it coming. He lost his balance instantly and went flying like a dog diving into a pile of trash. There was a sickening thud as his face slammed directly into a metal guardrail. I heard the distinct sound of teeth cracking against metal. He groaned, dropping the stolen wallet on the pavement. Damn you, kid, he hissed, clutching his bloody mouth. You're dead. I won't let this go. He saw the beautiful woman catching up and realized he couldn't stay to fight. He scrambled up to run, but I wasn't finished. I picked up a loose stone from the ground and gave it a heavy toss. Crack! It hit him square in the back of the head. He let out a sharp cry of pain, blood beginning to mat his hair, but the adrenaline must have kicked in. He actually started running faster than before, disappearing around a corner. Run while you can, I muttered, shaking my head. I leaned down and picked up the wallet. Just as I turned around to return it, a shadow slammed into me. The woman had been running so fast that she couldn't stop. Her heel caught on a crack in the sidewalk, and she began to fall forward. Catch me, she screamed, her face pale with terror. Don't worry, I've got you, I said. I reached out quickly to steady her. My hands found a firm grip, and I managed to keep her from hitting the concrete. But the second she felt my hands, she let out a shriek that could wake the dead. She scrambled back as if she'd been electrocuted, her face turning a deep, angry crimson. You pervert, she yelled. Hey, take it easy. I argued. I was just trying to help you. Help me? Who helps someone by grabbing them there? She snapped, her chest heaving with rage. I looked at my hands, then back at her. My expression froze. Okay, I had to admit, the grip I found was a bit more intimate than I intended. Look, can I just say it was an accident? I gave her an awkward, sheepish smile. I was just trying to stop you from falling. Accident? Humph. There are no accidents like that. She marched forward, snatched the wallet out of my hand, and gave me one last murderous glare before storming off. I stood there stunned. Great. Now I'm a sex offender. I looked at my left hand and slapped it with my right. Bad hand. Wrong place. 20 minutes later, I arrived at a professional office building. I checked the address on the business card Yang Ruobing had given me. This was the place. I walked inside and knocked on a door. Hello? I'm here for an interview. Is President Yang in? A plump woman in her late 20s walked over. The applicant? Follow me. I gave her a polite smile and followed her into a private office. President Yang, the applicant is here, she announced. Yang Ruobing looked up from her desk, her expression perfectly professional. I see. You can go back to work. Once the door clicked shut, I scanned the room. Not bad, wife. Your office is actually pretty nice. Yang Ruobing's brow furrowed, a flash of annoyance crossing her face. Yahello, Did you already forget what you promised me? Right. Force of habit. Sorry, President Yang, I said, rubbing my nose. I don't want to hear it again, she warned. My company handles beauty product distribution. Have you ever worked in sales? Sales? Please, I bragged, not missing a beat. It's just talking to people and drinking with clients. I'm an expert at the full service treatment. She didn't look impressed, but she picked up her desk phone anyway. I'll have someone come in to process your paperwork. A moment later, there was a knock at the door. A woman with a killer figure walked in. She stopped dead when she saw me, her eyes widening in confusion. Wait, have we met? Xiaoying, Yang Ruobing said, this is our new colleague. Help him with his onboarding. Yahello, go with her. Sure thing, I said, turning around. My heart nearly stopped. You have got to be kidding me. It's you. You pervert, the girl screamed. Yang Ruobing froze, her eyes darting between us. Xiaoying, what's going on? President Yang, this is the creep I told you about. The one who groped me. She pointed a trembling finger at me, her face flushed with anger. You can't hire him. It's like letting a wolf into the house. Whoa. Lady, watch your mouth, I shot back. I told you. I was just trying to catch you before you fell. Catch me? By grabbing my chest with both hands. She put her hands on her hips, fuming. Yang Ruobing's gaze turned icy as she stared at me. Yahello, I think you owe us an explanation. Wife, I mean boss. Don't listen to her, I said, nearly slipping up again. It was a total misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? You were trying to take advantage of me. Xiaoying snapped. The tension was thick, but Yang Ruobing eventually sighed. She had promised me that $50,000, and if I didn't work, she'd be paying it out of her own pocket. Xiaoying, I'm sure it was just an accident, Yang Ruobing said, acting as the mediator. Let's put him on probation. If he doesn't work out, I'll fire him myself. But President Yang, Xiaoying looked like she wanted to protest, but she saw the look on her boss's face. Fine. 3 months. Follow me, creep. With pleasure, I grinned, following her out of the office. Yang Ruobing shook her head as the door closed. He really is a disaster. Half an hour later, my paperwork was done. The universe clearly had a twisted sense of humor because my desk was right next to Xiaoying's. I looked around the office. Including Yang Ruobing, there were only 6 people, 4 women and 2 men. One of the guys, a guy named Yang Daong, looked like a typical high-achieving university grad. I gave everyone a casual wave and then, having nothing to do, I pulled up a card game on my computer. I spent the next hour happily playing digital poker. Next to me, I could feel Xiaoying's blood pressure rising. She couldn't believe I had the guts to slack off on my very first day. It was my first day on the job, and I was making it very clear that I didn't plan on working. I sat there, leaning back in my chair, focused entirely on the poker game on my computer screen. Xiaoying couldn't take it anymore. She spun her chair around, her face flushed with anger. Yahello, you just started and you're already playing games? Do you think you own this place? I smirked. Technically, my wife owned the place, but I wasn't about to let that secret slip. I just shrugged and kept my eyes on the screen. The boss hasn't said anything. Why are you so worked up? You, she stuttered, pointing a finger at me. Aren't you afraid I'll report you? Terrified, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Go ahead. She stomped her foot, her chest heaving with indignation. Fine. Don't you dare act smug when you get fired. She stood up and marched straight into Yang Ruobing's office. I watched her go, a small grin playing on my lips. A few minutes later, she came back out, biting her lip and looking completely baffled. I gave her a playful wink. So, am I fired yet? Just wait until you fail to pull in any business, she snapped. She sat down, clearly confused. Yang Ruobing was usually a stickler for the rules. Why was she letting a slacker like me slide? Don't worry, I said. When I land a big contract, I'll take you out for a massive feast. In your dreams, she scoffed. I could see her brain working, trying to find a way to get back at me. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. She grabbed a thick folder from her desk and held it out. Hey, Yahello, since you're so bored, do me a favor. Take these documents to Director Zhang in the building across the street. Her office is on the 58th floor. I'm a salesman, not a delivery boy, I said without looking up. Pass. She turned red. Then what will it take for you to help me? I leaned back and gave her a long, slow look. Unless you agree to go on a date with me tonight. A date? She recoiled for a second, then a devious glint appeared in her eyes. Fine, a date it is. But there's a catch. You have to get these to Director Zhang within 15 minutes. If you're late, the date is off. I glanced out the window at the skyscraper across the way. With an elevator, I'd be up and down in 5 minutes. Deal, I said, grabbing the folder and heading for the door. As soon as I disappeared, Zhaoying burst out laughing. You pervert. The elevators in that building are broken. Have fun climbing 58 flights of stairs. 9 minutes and 48 seconds later, I walked back into the office. Zhaoying stared at me, her jaw dropping. She probably thought I saw the out-of-order sign and gave up. Yahello, Director Zhang needs those files urgently. Why are you back already? I delivered them, I said, tossing my keys onto the desk. Liar. The elevators are down. Check for yourself, I shrugged. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and dialed the director's office. A few seconds later, her face went pale. Her eyes darted toward me like she was looking at a monster. The director had confirmed it. The files were on her desk. Accounting for the walk back, I must have reached the 58th floor in under 5 minutes on foot. So, I said, leaning over her desk with a wicked grin. About that date? She was cornered. Oh, going back on your word already. I am not a liar, she shouted, her pride taking over. Fine, I'll go on a date with you tonight. Are you happy now? I chuckled and stretched my arms. Actually, I'm busy tonight. Maybe next time. She froze. Her mouth hung open as I turned back to my computer. She was one of the most pursued girls in the city, and I had just stood her up before the date even started. She looked like she wanted to scream. Nearby, I noticed Yang Daong glaring at me. He was a top-tier university grad who had joined this small company specifically to chase Zhaoying. He cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and walked over to her with a polished, gentlemanly smile. Zhaoying, he said, holding up 2 tickets. I heard that new romance movie is great. Would you like to go with me tonight? Zhaoying frowned slightly. Compared to me, Yang Daong looked the part of a successful professional, but she always felt he was incredibly fake. Oh, I'm actually busy tonight. Sorry, Daong. His smile didn't flicker, but I saw his eye twitch. No problem. Next time, then. He turned away, his face darkening. He looked at me, still playing games, and his frustration found a target. He grabbed a stack of papers and slammed them onto my desk. Yahello, here's a list of 50 potential clients, he said, his voice cold. Call them and see if they want our new skincare line. I won't pressure you since you're new, just close 5 deals. 5? I asked. Is that too hard? He sneered. I closed 10 on my first day. That record still hasn't been broken. If you can't even handle 5, maybe you don't belong here. Daong, stop it, Zhaoying cut in. You did 10 because you had experience in phone sales. Asking him for 5 on day 1 is impossible. I looked at her, surprised she was defending me. Then I looked at the list. 5. Let's see if I can break that record of yours. Challenge accepted, Daong mocked, crossing his arms. I picked up the office phone and dialed the first number on the list, hitting the speakerphone button so the whole office could hear. A woman answered, her voice sounding tired and annoyed. Hello? Who is this? Good afternoon, Miss Shun, I said, my voice instantly becoming warm and professional. I'm Yi from Xiaojia Beauty. I was wondering if I could borrow 5 minutes of your time to talk about your current skincare routine. I'm busy. I don't have time, she snapped. It'll only take 5 minutes, I promise. Are you sick in the head? She screamed through the phone. I said I don't have time. Stop bothering me. Click. Yang Daong let out a sharp laugh. He was loving this. Even Zhaoying sighed, looking disappointed. From the sound of it, that first deal was dead in the water. Everyone in the office froze. They couldn't believe what they just heard. I had actually snapped back at a potential client. You're the one who's sick, I said calmly into the phone. The office went silent. Was I crazy? You don't insult the customers. Yang Daong was practically vibrating with joy. He thought I'd just handed him my resignation on a silver platter. What? Did you just call me sick? The woman's voice on the other end spiked, but there was a tremor in it, a lack of energy. Ms. Shun, don't misunderstand, I said, my voice dropping into a steady, professional rhythm. I mean your body is sick. If I'm not mistaken, You've lost your appetite lately. You feel bloated after eating, dizzy, and short of breath. You're exhausted all the time. Your complexion is dull, and your lips look pale, almost gray. Am I right? There was a long, stunned silence on the line. How do you know that? I could almost see her eyes widening through the phone. I hadn't even met her, yet I'd read her symptoms perfectly. I could hear it in your voice, I explained. In traditional Chinese medicine, we call it a deficiency of zhongqi. Your spleen and stomach are weak. If you don't take care of it, it's going to accelerate the aging process. The moment I mentioned aging, her tone shifted completely. No woman wants to hear that, especially when the stranger on the phone clearly knows exactly what's wrong with her. Then, what should I do? She asked, her voice now urgent. You can adjust your diet, I said confidently. Eat more peas, they help tonify the qi. Or, if that's too much trouble, try massaging your lower back and the my acupuncture points on your waist until they feel warm. It's more effective than food alone. My God, Xiaoyi, Zhaoying whispered nearby. Are you selling face masks or practicing medicine? I flashed her a grin. I'm selling masks, but I know a thing or two about health. The woman on the phone laughed. The tension was gone. All right, I'll try it. A massage won't kill me. You're a lot more interesting than the other salesman. Because I'd actually helped her, she stayed on the line. We chatted for a few more minutes, and before I hung up, I had my first sale. She agreed to buy our new product line on the spot. Zhaoying looked at me like I was a magician. I can't believe you pulled that off. You were just making that medical stuff up to trick her, weren't you? I shrugged, a small smile playing on my lips. Maybe, but hey, a sale is a sale. She laughed, convinced I was just a smooth talker. She had no way of knowing my secret. I wasn't just a soldier. I was the 9th-generation successor of the divine medical sect. To me, these diagnoses were child's play. But those days were behind me. I just wanted a quiet life now. The next 10 minutes were a blur. I didn't stop at one. I moved through the list like a machine, using the same medical approach to build rapport. By the time I put the phone down for the last time, the entire office was staring at me. I had closed 20 deals in less than half an hour. Yahello, you're a beast, one of the guys shouted. The team crowded around my desk, cheering. I just looked over at Yang Daong. His face was dark, his jaw twitching as he tried to suppress his rage. Sorry, Brother Yang, I said casually. I accidentally broke your record. I don't believe that medical crap, a guy nicknamed Fatinho said, pointing at Daong. If you're so good, tell us what's wrong with him. I looked Daong up and down for a second. You sure? Brother Yang definitely has some issues. You're the one with issues. Daong barked, his face turning beet red. Is that so? I asked. Then why have you been so moody lately? Losing control of your emotions? Dizzy? Irritable? Anxious? Maybe even a little depressed? Daong's eyes went wide. How did you? In medicine, we observe, listen, and ask, I said. Your breath is shallow and uneven. You should take better care of yourself. What does that mean? Zhaoying asked, curious. Fatinho figured it out first and burst into a roar of laughter. He's saying Daong has a kidney deficiency from playing too hard at the clubs. The office erupted. Daong stood there, speechless. He knew I was right. He'd been spending every night at bars and clubs, burning the candle at both ends. Having it called out in front of Zhaoying, his crush, was the ultimate humiliation. Well, Zhaoying teased, you should probably show some restraint, Daong. Health is important. Daong gritted his teeth, gave me a look of pure hatred, and stormed out of the room. I watched him go with a smirk. If he wanted to play games with me, he was going to need a lot more than a kidney deficiency to win. That evening, I took a taxi back to the villa. Yang Ruobing was sitting in the living room, her profile looking like something out of a high-end magazine. She was cold, beautiful, and perfectly composed. I sat down, kicked my feet up on the coffee table, and bit into an apple. She frowned at my lack of manners, but didn't scold me. I heard you closed 20 deals today, she said quietly. Pretty good, right? I grinned. It's acceptable, she replied. I shrugged. I was getting used to my iceberg wife. Suddenly, a black BMW screeched to a halt outside. A man in his 20s jumped out, looking arrogant and angry. Yang Ruobing, get out here. Who's that? I asked, looking out the window. My cousin, Ruobing said coldly before walking out to meet him. I followed her to the door. The guy, Yang Chaofan, was already screaming. You ungrateful brat. The Yang family paid for your education, and now you think you can turn your back on us? Grandpa said you have to give us an explanation for the Zhang family calling off the engagement. If the Zhangs called it off, ask them why, Ruobing said, her voice flat. It has nothing to do with me. Liar. Chaofan pointed a finger at her face. Grandpa knows it's your fault. Even if you don't marry a Zhang, you'll marry whoever we tell you to. Just come back quietly before things get ugly. That's impossible, Ruobing said. Why? Because I'm already married. Chaofan froze. His jaw practically hit the pavement. What? You married someone else? You threw away the family's interests for some random man? You've gone insane. I'm not insane, Ruobing said, and for the first time, I saw a flash of real anger in her eyes. I'm choosing who I want to be with. I refuse to be a sacrifice for your business deals anymore. Yang Chaofan had clearly been holding back his rage for a long time. He looked like he was about to explode. Tell me, he roared. Who is the bastard you married? I'm going to chop him into pieces. He was mid-sentence when an apple flew through the air and smashed right into his face. The fruit shattered into bits, and Chaofan stumbled back, his eye already turning dark and bruised. Damn it! Who did that? He screamed, his eyes bulging as he looked around wildly. Who's the coward hiding in the shadows? Come out. Who's the mad dog barking at my front door? A lazy voice echoed from inside the house. It sounded bored, like the person speaking couldn't care less about the drama. I stepped out of the villa, leaning against the doorframe with a smirk. Chaofan stared at me, confused and angry. You? Who the hell are you? Me? I chuckled. You should probably call me brother-in-law. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He turned to Ruobing, his voice trembling with fury. Is this him? Is this the man you chose? Yes, Ruobing replied, her face like a mask of ice. Fine. Good. You've gone completely insane, Ruobing. Chaofan yelled. You ruined the family's plans for this piece of trash? Today, I'm going to teach this nobody a lesson he'll never forget. He lunged at me, throwing a heavy punch straight for my face. I didn't even flinch. You don't know how to talk to your elders, do you? I laughed. I reached out, my hand moving like a blur, and caught his fist midair. He froze. Let go of me, and if I don't, I teased. Go to hell. He gritted his teeth and swung his other fist with everything he had. I caught that one too. I held both of his fists in my palms, pinning him in place. He looked like a trapped animal, struggling against a grip he couldn't break. Let go. Let go right now, he shrieked, panic finally setting in. I'll let go, I said, my voice dropping to a playful whisper. But only if you apologize to your brother-in-law. Screw you. I'd rather die than apologize to you. Is that so? I gave him a wicked grin. Slowly, I started to squeeze. The sound of his knuckles popping and grinding filled the air. At first, Chaofan tried to play the tough guy, biting his lip until it bled. But a few seconds later, his face turned paper white. Cold sweat poured down his forehead. The pain was clearly agonizing. 5 more seconds passed. His face turned a deep, bruised purple. Tears and snot were streaming down his face. He couldn't take it anymore. Brother-in-law, I was wrong. Please just let go? I'm dying here. I let out a cold laugh. I told you that you'd apologize. I threw his hands aside with a flick of my wrists. The sudden loss of tension sent him tumbling backward. He landed hard on his backside, nearly splitting his pants. You too will regret this, he spat, scrambling to his feet. He didn't wait for a reply. He turned and bolted for his car. TCH. What a loser, I muttered. If I knew he was that weak, I would have just snapped his wrists and been done with it. Ruobing looked at me, her expression unreadable. I'm sorry you had to see that. It's fine, I said, waving it off. Someone was bullying my wife. Of course I had to step in. Hey, wife, where are you going? I'm not finished. She ignored me and walked back into the villa. Her shoulders were slumped. She looked heavy, like the weight of the world was pressing down on her. I followed her inside, staying quiet for once. Suddenly, she spoke. Do you want to hear a story? Sure, I said, shrugging. I've got time. She stayed silent for a moment, staring into the distance. Once, there was a son from a wealthy family. He fell in love with a humble maid. When his family found out, they did everything to tear them apart. They kicked her out, even though she was pregnant with his child. She took a shaky breath. A few years later, the man died of an illness. The maid raised their daughter alone. When the girl turned 15, the family found her and dragged her back. She wanted to be free, to make her own way in the world. But the family only saw her as a tool. They tried to force her to marry a man she hated, all for the sake of a business deal. She stopped there. Is that it? I asked. That's it. Pretty cliché, right? A little, I admitted with a wry smile. But I think the girl in that story is brave. And maybe a little pitiful. I hadn't expected the iceberg CEO to have such a painful past. It explained a lot. Pitiful. She gave a hollow laugh. Maybe. You're actually lucky, I said suddenly. She looked at me, confused. Why? At least you know who your parents were. I don't even have a name for mine. I pulled a crumpled pack of cigarettes from my pocket, lit one, and took a long drag. I stared out the window, the smoke curling around my face. For a moment, I let the mask slip. I felt the old weight of my own history, the loneliness of a man who grew up with nothing but his own two hands. Ruabing stared at me. She seemed startled by the sadness in my eyes. It reminded her of the way I looked back at the Civil Affairs Bureau, lost and weathered. I could see the pity in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to bring up bad memories. I suddenly broke into a wide grin. Huh, gotcha. You actually believe that? Ruabing froze. Her face went from sympathetic to murderous in a split second. Her small fists started shaking. That's the spirit, wife. I laughed, backing away. Don't walk around looking so miserable. If any bastard tries to mess with you, your husband will beat them into the ground for you. I saw her hand reach for a heavy ceramic vase. Oh, I just remembered. I have a thing to do. See ya. I bolted out of the room faster than a rabbit. Why Yahello, she screamed. Her voice echoed through the entire villa. I was already halfway across the yard, grinning to myself. Behind me, inside the house, Ruabing slowly set the vase down. A tiny, reluctant smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. What a weirdo, she whispered. Meanwhile, Yang Chaofan had made it back to his hotel. His face was twisted in a dark scowl as he dialed a long-distance number. Grandpa, it's a disaster, he shouted into the phone. Young Ruabing, she actually got married. She signed the papers. What? The old man on the other end sounded like he'd been hit by lightning. Chaofan, tell me exactly what happened. Chaofan began to tell the story, adding plenty of lies to make us look as bad as possible. By the time he finished, his grandfather, Yang Zhongyi, was roaring with rage. That ungrateful brat. She dares to ignore the family's interests for some random man? She's a disgrace. Grandpa, what should we do? Chaofan asked, his eyes gleaming with malice. Should I hire someone to take care of the guy? First, we crush her company, the old man growled. Then we deal with her and that bastard husband of hers together. Understood. Leave it to me. Chaofan hung up, feeling triumphant. But the Yang family wasn't the only one looking for revenge. Across the city at the So-So bar, Zhang Zijian was sitting in a dim booth. He was drinking with a man in his late 20s who looked just as arrogant as he did. The man was Yang Daong, another member of the Yang clan who had been humiliated recently. Young Master Zhang, Daong said, bowing his head like a loyal dog. I've heard so much about you. It's an honor to finally meet. You really are as impressive as they say. He was laying the flattery on thick. He had received a call saying Zhang Zijian wanted to talk business, and he wasn't about to miss an opportunity to climb the social ladder. Zhang Zijian took a sip of his drink and smirked. The hunt was on. It's just the brothers on the streets giving me face, Zhang Zijian said, his voice dripping with fake humility. It's nothing worth mentioning. I knew the type. He was a snake in a designer suit. He leaned back, eyes narrowing as he looked at Yang Daong. I heard you're a graduate from a prestigious university, Brother Yang. Why are you wasting your talents as a lowly employee in a small company like Yang Ruabing's? Daong hesitated. He couldn't exactly tell Zhang Zijian that he only joined the company to chase after a girl named Zhaoing. He cleared his throat, trying to sound professional. Young Master Zhang, I just see my current job as a transition. Once I find a better platform, I'll jump ship immediately. Oh, Zhang Zijian let out a cold, calculating smile. As it happens, I have an opening for a general manager. I wonder if you'd be interested in moving over? General manager? Daong's tongue nearly tied itself in knots. He hadn't expected such a golden opportunity to fall into his lap. That's right. Zhang Zijian continued, dangling the bait. A base salary of 500,000 a year. If performance is good, there's an extra 300,000 in bonuses. 800,000. Daong was stunned. That kind of money was a fortune to him. So, will you consider it? I'm in. Daong blurted out, terrified the offer would vanish if he waited a second longer. I have one condition, though, Zhang Zijian said, his expression turning dark and sinister. Anything. What is it? Zhang Zijian leaned in and whispered into Daong's ear. The next morning at 9, Daong walked into Yang Ruobing's office with a wide, oily grin. President Yang, I've secured a major lead. A client is very interested in our skincare line. Ruobing didn't even look up from her paperwork. If that's the case, just send them the samples. But this deal is worth at least 500,000, Daong added quickly. Ruobing's pen stopped. She looked up, surprised. Let me see the details. She scanned the documents he handed over. The client seemed like a mid-sized company with a solid reputation. If she landed this, it would be a huge boost for her business. What does the client say, Daong? Boss Lin said he wants to discuss the specifics with you personally. Tonight at 7, Dynasty Hotel, the Shanshui Suite. Are you free? Ruobing nodded. I'll be there. Great. I'll let him know. Daong turned to leave, a twisted smile creeping onto his face the moment his back was to her. A few minutes later, Daong slipped into the restroom and dialed a number. Young Master Zhang, it's done. Good, the voice on the other end replied. See you tonight. Daong hung up and walked out, feeling like a king. He didn't notice that one of the stall doors was closed. Inside, I was finishing up my business. I'd heard the whole thing. Daong is acting awfully suspicious. I muttered to myself as I adjusted my belt and walked out. The day went by fast. As I was packing up to head home, I got a text from Ruobing. I'm meeting a client with Yang Daong tonight. Don't wait up for dinner. Got it, I replied. I didn't think much of it at first. At 7 o'clock, Ruobing and Daong were sitting across from a middle-aged man in the hotel suite. The guy, Boss Lin, was covered in rolls of fat that shook whenever he laughed. Haha, they said President Yang was a beauty, but seeing you in person, words don't do you justice, Lin boomed. Ruobing gave him a polite, distant smile. You flatter me, Boss Lin. President Yang, Boss Lin thinks very highly of our new products. Daong chimed in, tossing a suggestive look at Lin. We should definitely have a few drinks tonight to celebrate. Business is settled at the dinner table, Lin added, acting like a big shot. Order whatever you want. My treat. Ruobing shook her head. You're the client. This one is on us. Daong, call the waiter. The food arrived 30 minutes later. Daong was acting incredibly hospitable, pouring 3 glasses of expensive Maodai. When he tried to hand one to Ruobing, she put her hand up. Daong, I drove here. I'm not drinking. President Yang, it's a celebration, Lin said, his eyes narrowing. At least have a little to show some respect. Ruobing remained firm. I don't drink and drive. Please understand. Fine, fine, Lin said, signaling Daong with a quick look. Drink juice then. Daong, go get a glass for the president. On it, Daong said. He left the room and found a waiter he recognized. He pressed a small packet of powder and a wad of cash into the man's hand. Put this in the juice, Daong whispered. Brother, isn't this dangerous? The waiter stammered. Shut up and do it. Young Master Zhang said if you handle this, your gambling debts are wiped clean. The waiter's eyes lit up. Really? Consider it done. A few minutes later, the waiter brought the juice in. For the lady, he said, placing it in front of Ruobing. To our partnership, Lin said, raising his glass. Ruobing smiled and took a small sip of the juice. Daong and Lin shared a look. The trap was set. Within minutes, Ruobing's skin began to flush a deep pink. Beads of sweat broke out on her forehead. She pressed a hand to her temple, her vision blurring as the room started to spin. President Yang? Are you okay? Daong asked, his voice dripping with fake concern. Daong, you bastard. Ruobing hissed, her finger trembling as she pointed at him. She knew she realized too late that the drink was spiked. Bastard? I'm helping you, Daong laughed. Ruobing tried to speak, but her strength vanished. Her eyes rolled back, and she slumped over, unconscious. Daong grinned, telling Boss Lin that young Master Zhang would sign the contract tomorrow. Haha. Thank you, Manager Yang, Lin said, his eyes devouring Ruobing's limp body. "Let's get her upstairs," Daeong commanded. "The room is already booked." They carried her out of the suite. To anyone watching, she just looked like a woman who'd had too much to drink. They took her straight to the presidential suite on the top floor. Inside, Zhang Zijian was waiting, looking sharp in his suit. "Young Master Zhang, we brought her," Daeong said, bowing like a loyal dog. "Good." Zhang Zijian nodded, a cold light in his eyes. "We'll leave you to it then," Daeong said, turning to go. "Enjoy your night." "No," Zhang Zijian said, his face twisting into something truly demonic. "Stay? After I'm done with her, it's your turn." I looked down at Yang Ruobing's unconscious body, and a wave of bitter resentment washed over me. This woman was supposed to be my wife. We were on the verge of marriage, yet she had crawled into bed with another man right before the wedding. Even worse, that bastard had beaten me senseless. My father had warned me repeatedly to stay away from Yahello, but I couldn't swallow this insult. I was Zhang Zijian. I was always at the top. "Yang Ruobing, you bitch," I hissed. "You dare to make me a cuckold? I'm going to let everyone have a turn with you." "Young Master Zhang," Yang Daeong interrupted, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I have something special. It's a wild girl potion. They say even the purest woman becomes a total slut once she drinks this." Daeong was practically vibrating at the thought of getting his hands on Ruobing. He pulled a small vial from his pocket like it was a sacred treasure. A wild girl potion? I felt a surge of heat in my chest. The cold, arrogant young Ruobing acting like a desperate animal? The thought was intoxicating. "What are you waiting for? Feed it to her." Daeong didn't hesitate. He pinched Ruobing's chin, forcing her mouth open, and poured the liquid down her throat. She coughed violently, the harsh chemical taste forcing her eyes to flutter open. She was regaining consciousness, but she was weak. "Zhang Zijian," she rasped, her body trembling with rage. You animal. I should have known you were behind this." I let out a loud, lecherous laugh. "You betrayed me, Ruobing. You should have expected a price. Tonight, I'm going to break you." I started peeling off my suit jacket. Despair filled her eyes. She looked at the wall, gritted her teeth, and tried to lunge forward to smash her head against the corner. She wanted to end it right there. "Stop her," I shouted. Daeong moved fast, pinning her back onto the bed. "Trying to die? Not a chance, bitch. Let me go, you bastards." Ruobing screamed, tears of pure frustration streaming down her face. "I'll haunt you. I'll kill you in the next life." "Look, young master. It's starting," Daeong whispered. Ruobing's skin was turning a deep, feverish red. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a boiling shower. She started panting, her eyes growing hazy as the drug took hold of her mind. The Ice Queen was melting. I rubbed my hands together, stepping toward the bed with a wicked grin. "Let's see how loud you scream now. You'll die for this." She managed to moan, but her voice was fading. Suddenly, the heavy suite door exploded inward. A man stood in the doorway. He had a cigarette dangling from his lips, his face partially obscured by a veil of blue smoke. He looked cold, lethal. "A bunch of grown men bullying one woman," he said, his voice dropping like a hammer. "You call yourselves men? Who the hell are you?" I snapped, spinning around. Ruobing glanced toward the door. The moment she saw him, her entire body relaxed. She knew she was safe. With that final thought, the drug and the exhaustion took over, and she blacked out again. But in those last seconds, the image of Yahello standing there was burned into her soul. "You?" I gasped. My heart skipped a beat. It was him, the man who had ruined everything. "Yahello? How did you get here?" "Just passing by," he said with a casual shrug. "Do you believe me?" He was lying, of course. He had overheard Daeong mentioning young Master Zhang in the restroom earlier that morning. His gut told him something was wrong, so he had followed us. Seeing his wife drugged and surrounded by these predators turned his blood to ice. "Passing by? Do you think I'm an idiot?" I barked. "You learned your lesson last time, yet you still dare to touch my woman? If you aren't an idiot, then what are you?" Yahello's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It seems I didn't teach you well enough last time. I'll have to finish the job for your father." He started walking toward me. Each step felt like a death sentence. Don't come any closer." I backed away, my face turning pale. "I'm a Zhang. If you touch a hair on my head, my family will destroy you. I was rambling. I knew my father was terrified of this man. My threats were just empty noise to stop my heart from jumping out of my chest. Is that a threat? Yahello asked. The killing intent radiating off him was suffocating. No, it's just a reminder. I stammered, trying to sound helpful. Then thank you for the reminder, he said. Before I could breathe a sigh of relief, his foot lashed out. It was a blur. His boot slammed into my chest with the force of a moving truck. Crack. The sound of my ribs snapping echoed in the quiet room. I hit the floor, letting out a scream that sounded like a slaughtered pig. The pain was blinding. Young master, Daong and the others cried out, but they stayed frozen, too terrified to move. Yahello didn't stop. He walked over to me while I was writhing on the floor and raised his foot again. He brought it down hard on my right hand. Crunch, my fingers were pulverized. 5 bones shattered instantly. I turned white, my eyes nearly popping out of their sockets as the agony surged through my nervous system. I had never felt anything like this in my life. My hand. I wailed, clutching his shoe with my left hand, trying to push him off. It wouldn't budge. It was like trying to move a mountain. Young Master Zhang, Yahello said coldly. Will you ever touch my woman again? No, never. I promise. I sobbed. Please, just stop. I don't believe you. He lifted his foot one last time and aimed right for my crotch. Thwack! It sounded like a balloon popping. My mouth hung open, but no sound came out. My face turned a deep, bruised purple, and the veins in my forehead bulged as the world went black. Zhang Zijian lay on the floor like a crushed earthworm. He shivered violently for a few seconds before the sheer intensity of the pain forced his brain to shut down. He passed out without even having the breath left to scream. I looked down at him and let out a cold laugh. That kick had been heavy. I knew exactly what I'd done. Zhang Zijian wouldn't be using that part of his body ever again. They call it the lineage-ending kick for a reason. The room was deathly silent. Daong and the other thugs stood frozen, their faces pale as they watched their boss crumble. They were shaking, eyes wide with pure terror. Daong looked the worst. He couldn't wrap his head around how a lazy colleague from the office could be this ruthless. I slowly turned my head and looked at them. It was just a glance, but it was enough to make Daong's knees buckle. I heard a wet splash on the floor. The guy had literally pissed himself. Please, Daong wailed, dropping to his knees. The others followed suit, hitting the floor like they were at a funeral. Brother Hao, we were blind. We didn't know who we were dealing with. Please, just treat us like a fart and let us go. I let out a disgusted snort. A fart? You guys aren't even worth that much. You're right. Daong nodded frantically, slapping his own chest. We're trash. We're the scum of society. Just please, don't kill us. I pulled a chair over and sat down by the bed, crossing my legs. I gave them a thin, dangerous smile. I didn't know you had such high self-awareness. Look, I could let you go, but you laid hands on my woman. You have to show me some sincerity. They exchanged confused looks. They knew what I meant. This was a shakedown. But they didn't care about the money. Anything was better than ending up like Zhang Zijian. No money in the world is worth losing your ability to be a man. The man known as Boss Lin was the first to react. He scrambled forward on his knees, fumbling with his wallet until he pulled out a gold bank card. He held it up with both hands like he was offering a sacrifice to an emperor. Brother Hao, there's 200,000 yuan in here. The password is 6 zeros. Please, accept it as a small token of my apology. I didn't hesitate. I took the card and tucked it away. Then, I shifted my gaze to Daong. And yours? Daong froze. His mouth hung open, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. I don't have that kind of money, Brother Hao. Things have been tight lately. No money, I barked, my voice turning sharp. Then start slapping yourself. Don't stop until I'm satisfied. Move. Daong flinched, his whole body trembling. He grit his teeth and swung his hand. Slap. Too soft, I said coldly. Harder. Slap. Still weak. Again. Slap. 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 Daong started hitting himself with everything he had. He swung until his eyes were glazing over, and he couldn't tell north from south. His cheeks were swelling into bruised lumps. Forget it, I muttered, standing up. You clearly haven't eaten tonight. Let me help you. I grabbed Daong by the collar with my left hand and wound up my right. Crack. The sound of the slap was like a gunshot. Daeong spun through the air, completing 2 full rotations before hitting the floor. 3 of his front teeth skittered across the tiles. I turned to Boss Lin and beckoned him over with a finger. He crawled toward me, shaking like a leaf. Brother Hao, what else can I do for you? I patted his cheek gently, a predatory grin on my face. After today, are you going to try and get revenge on my wife? No, never, he gasped. I wouldn't dare. I'd rather die. Smart man, I laughed. I didn't waste any more time. I scooped young Ruobing up into my arms and walked out of the hotel room without looking back. Behind me, I heard Boss Lin collapse in a heap, muttering about how he'd never cross me again as long as he lived. Half an hour later, I pulled her car into the villa's driveway. She was still out cold, and the drug was still in her system. I needed to get the toxins out fast. I carried her upstairs and laid her on her bed. I pulled a small, ancient wooden box from my pocket. Inside was a single silver needle, thin as a hair. I reached out and unbuttoned the top few buttons of her white shirt to reach the pressure points on her chest. A flash of pale, perfect skin was revealed, but I forced my mind to stay sharp. This wasn't the time for wandering eyes. I took a deep breath, my focus narrowing down to the tip of the needle. With a fluid, practiced motion, I began the acupuncture. 1 inch deep here, half an inch there. My hands moved like water. Slowly, her skin began to flush a deep red. Beads of sweat broke out on her forehead, carrying the dark toxins out of her pores. After 10 minutes, her breathing evened out and the unnatural redness faded. I packed my needle away and sat in a nearby chair to wait. A few minutes later, her eyes fluttered open. She sat up slowly, looking around the room in confusion. When she realized she was home, she let out a long, shaky breath. Yahello. Thank you, she said softly. Her voice was sincere for once. I shrugged. Don't mention it. Just be more careful next time. You won't always be this lucky. She nodded, falling into a thoughtful silence. I stood up to head for the door. Where are you going? She asked. Going for a smoke, I replied. I paused at the door and looked back over my shoulder. By the way, that pink lace looks good on you. It suits you better than the white shirt. Pink. She looked confused for a second. She was wearing a white shirt. Then, she looked down. Her buttons were still undone. How? Hao, she screamed, her face turning a deep crimson from both anger and embarrassment. I didn't wait for the lecture. I vanished into the hallway like a ghost, laughing to myself. Back at the hotel, things weren't so lighthearted. Boss Lin had called for help, and Zhang Zijian had been rushed to the hospital. Standing outside the operating room was a man with a face full of fury, Zhang Yishan, Zijian's father. The surgeon walked out, removing his mask with a grim expression. Mr. Zhang, we saved your son's life. But what? Zhang Yishan demanded. But he will never be able to have children. I'm very sorry. The doctor hurried away, leaving Zhang Yishan alone in the hall. His eyes burned with a murderous light, and his knuckles popped as he clenched his fists. Yahello, he hissed through gritted teeth. First you broke my legs, and now you've ended my family line. If I don't kill you, I am not a man. In our culture, there is no greater sin than failing to carry on the family name. The Zhangs had been a single-child line for generations. Now it ended here. Zhang Yishan wanted blood, but he wasn't a fool. He remembered how terrifying I could be. He wouldn't strike openly. He pulled out his phone and dialed a secret number. It was time to set a trap. Zhang Yishan hung up the phone. His face was a mask of cold fury. He knew he couldn't beat me in a fair fight. I was too fast, too strong, and too dangerous. But he didn't plan on playing fair anymore. He was going to use every dirty trick in the book. A few days later, I was back at the office. I was bored out of my mind. I sat at my desk playing a card game on my phone, completely relaxed. Next to me, Zhaoing finished a long call with a client. She looked ecstatic. It was obvious she had just landed a big deal. Hey, little sister, I teased, looking up from my game. Sounds like a big order. When are you taking me out to dinner? She rolled her eyes at me. Eat, eat, eat. Is that all you know how to do? That and play cards. She couldn't understand how a slacker like me survived under a boss as strict as Yang Ruobing. But she was in a good mood, so she didn't stay mad. Actually, I did land a massive contract. Once it's finalized, I'll treat you to a feast. I'll hold you to that, I said, giving her a thumbs up. 5 days later, the deal was signed. A man in a sharp black suit named Manager Imo walked out of Yang Ruobing's office. Yang Ruobing followed him, looking more relaxed than usual. She thanked him for trusting her company to be the exclusive agent for their new face masks. They shook hands, and he promised to send the first shipment the next day. Once he left, Yang Ruobing walked over to Zhaoing. She actually had a small smile on her face. You did a great job, Zhaoing. This product is going to boost our sales significantly. Zhaoing beamed. It's my job, President Yang. I couldn't help myself. I had to stir the pot. Boss, words are cheap. You should show some real appreciation. How about you treat the whole office to dinner tonight? The rest of the staff caught on immediately. I agree. Me too. Dinner on the boss. I smirked at Yang Ruobing. Looks like you're cornered, boss. She didn't get angry. Instead, she gave a soft, rare smile. Fine. I'll pay. The office went silent. Everyone was staring at her. They couldn't believe the Ice Queen had actually smiled and agreed to a party. I just straightened my back and acted like it was all thanks to my charm. A week later, everything seemed perfect. The masks were flying off the shelves. But then, the phone call started. They weren't orders. They were complaints. One manager after another called in. Customers were reporting severe skin allergies after using the masks. They wanted refunds. They wanted compensation. Within days, it turned into a full-blown crisis. The office was in a state of panic. President Yang, Manager Lin wants a refund. Manager Zhang is threatening to sue. Zhaoing looked like she was about to cry. This was her deal. She felt responsible for the disaster. President Yang, I'm so sorry. I didn't know this would happen. Don't blame yourself, Yang Ruobing said, her voice steady. She was a professional. She didn't crumble under pressure. Call Manager Mo right now. We need answers. Zhaoing dialed the number. Her face went pale. President Yang, his phone is turned off. The room went cold. This wasn't an accident. It was a setup. Suddenly, a girl from the front desk came running in, panting for breath. President Yang, there's trouble. A crowd, they're outside. I didn't wait. I headed for the entrance. A mob of angry men and women were trying to push their way into the office. I stepped in front of the door, blocking the path. Listen, kid, one guy yelled. We know you're just a worker. Get out of the way before you get hurt. We want Yang Ruobing. We want our money back. I kept my hands up, palms out. Everyone, let's be civil. We can talk this through. I didn't budge an inch, no matter how much they pushed. Then, a burly man at the front stepped forward. He looked vicious. Civil? I lost tens of thousands because of your junk. If you don't pay up, I'm going to smash this place to pieces. I looked at him closely. He didn't look like a businessman. He had the eyes of a street thug. This was too well-timed to be a coincidence. Someone had sent him to escalate the situation. If I fought him now, I'd look like the aggressor in front of all these witnesses. I had to play it smart. Big brother, why are you yelling at me? I said, acting scared. I'm not the boss. Why take it out on me? If you're not the boss, then move, he roared. He reached out and shoved me hard. The moment his hand touched my chest, I didn't resist. I threw myself backward, stumbling as if he had hit me with the force of a truck. I made it look like a total assault. Now, the game had changed. This was exactly the result I wanted. To everyone watching, it looked like this brute had just slammed his palm into my chest for no reason. Damn it, I yelled, acting indignant. I'm just an employee here. Why are you taking your anger out on me? Why are you hitting people? I stood up and marched right back to the big guy, looking like I was trying to reason with him. Brother, hitting people isn't right. We're here to talk about money, not to hurt anyone. Yeah, he's right, someone in the crowd shouted. You're being too impulsive. Look at this poor guy, he's just a worker. Why make things hard for him? Suddenly, the crowd shifted. They were actually taking my side. The big man looked embarrassed, his face turning a shade of purple. I didn't hit him. I barely touched him. Barely touched me? I scoffed. I saw it. You did it on purpose. What did you say? He growled. Oh, so now you're hitting people and won't let me speak? I said you did it on purpose. The guy lost it. He grabbed me by the collar, his face inches from mine. This was the opening I needed. If he initiated the second strike, I had every right to defend myself. I didn't give him a chance to swing. My arm tensed up. You think I'm a pushover? Take this. I delivered a lightning-fast kick straight to his gut. Thump! The massive man flew backwards several meters, slamming into the wall with a heavy crash. He slid down and blacked out instantly. The crowd gasped. The sheer power of that kick left them chilled to the bone. I adjusted my shirt and looked around with a perfectly innocent expression. He forced my hand. I'm just a guy trying to do my job. Is it fair for him to treat me like a punching bag? Don't you all agree? Right. Totally fair, they muttered, nodding like little chicks pecking for grain. My sudden display of violence had effectively sucked the oxygen out of their protest. Just then, Yang Ruobing walked out of the office. Her appearance reignited the fire in the crowd. Look, Yang Ruobing is here, someone yelled. You black-hearted businesswoman. You sold us fake goods. If you don't give us an explanation, I'm calling the authorities to shut you down. Pay us back. Yang Ruobing scanned the room. Her gaze was cold, sharp, and commanding. She had this natural aura of a dominant CEO that seemed to press down on the entire lobby. Even I was impressed. Everyone, she said, her voice steady. Even though our company was also a victim in this setup, we will take full responsibility for your losses. Please, trust us. You'll really pay? Someone asked skeptically. Yang Ruobing, always keep my word, she replied firmly. Her calm in the face of a crisis showed exactly why she was a top executive. The tension in the room finally broke. Fine. You said it. Don't go back on your word. She nodded and led the group inside to verify their claims. Meanwhile, the big guy I'd kicked was being carried away by his cronies. As soon as they turned the corner, I slipped out the side door and followed them. They didn't notice me. A few minutes later, they pulled into a secluded construction site. The big guy, whose name I overheard was Sang Biao, finally woke up. He clutched his chest, hissing in pain. Damn, that bastard's kick was like a mule, Sang Biao groaned. It hurts like hell. Cousin, what now? One of his lackeys asked. Boss Missouri told us to lead the riot. We did our part, now we need to get paid. So, they were plants. A man named Mo had paid them 20,000 yuan to start trouble. It was a classic setup, but Sang Biao hadn't expected to get his ribs crushed in the process. About 30 minutes later, a Toyota Camry pulled up. A man I recognized as manager Mo stepped out with a smug grin. Biao, you did great. I heard Yang Ruobing's place is a total mess. Ha ha. Boss Missouri, you weren't honest with me, Sang Biao spat, lifting his shirt to reveal a massive, purple bruise in the shape of a footprint. You didn't tell me they had a monster working there. Look at this. I want another 10,000 for medical bills. Manager Mo gasped. Holy crap, who hit you that hard? I did, I said, stepping out from the shadows. They all froze. Cold sweat broke out on Manager Mo's forehead. He recognized me from the office. Sang Biao, on the other hand, was seeing red. Boss Missouri, that's the kid. Sang Biao roared. He caught me off guard earlier, but now he's dead meat. Boys, get him. 3 thugs stepped forward, cracking their knuckles. One guy with a buzz cut sneered at me. Kid, you've got a death wish. If you're smart, you'll crawl through my legs right now. Maybe I'll ask Biao to go easy on you. I didn't say a word. I just leaned down, picked up a stray brick from the ground, and tossed it lightly in my hand. I looked at the buzz-cut guy and smiled. Friend, your breath stinks. I think I should plug that hole for you. Plug it. With what? With this. In a blur of motion, I vanished. Before he could even blink, I was right in his face. I slammed the brick directly into his mouth. Crack. The brick shattered into pieces, and his teeth went flying with them. He let out a muffled scream, stumbling back as he lost at least half his teeth. Kill him, he sprayed, blood leaking from his gums. Avenge me. The remaining thugs pulled out knives, charging at me like they were on a caffeine high. I just reached down and picked up 2 more bricks. As the first guy lunged, I swung. The brick exploded against his skull. He went down instantly, blood matting his hair. I'll gut you, the next one screamed, thrusting his blade toward my stomach. You're not qualified to touch me, I whispered. I caught his wrist in a vice grip and slammed the second brick into his cheek. He spun around 3 times like a top before collapsing, a perfect red rectangular bruise imprinted on his face. The last thug looked terrified, but he threw a desperate punch. I didn't even use the bricks. I just lashed out with a heavy stomp right into his crotch. He doubled over, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. His face went from red to purple as he clutched his junk, gasping for air. You're so cheap. He wheezed before hitting the dirt. The last thug hit the ground so hard, he passed out from the pain. Now, the only ones left standing were Sang Biao and Manager Mo. Their faces were deathly pale, their teeth chattering like jackhammers. They looked at me with pure, unadulterated terror. Manager Mo, I didn't expect to see you here, I said with a faint smile. I had followed Sang Biao specifically to find out who was pulling the strings. I just hadn't realized it would be him. You don't do anything reckless, Mo stammered, his voice trembling. Hurting people it's against the law. You'll be held responsible. The law? I let out a cold snort. You're out here distributing defective face masks that ruin people's skin, and you're lecturing me about the law. Manager Mo opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was trapped. Beside him, Sang Biao decided it was time to save his own skin. He put on a pathetic, fawning smile. Young hero, since this is a private matter between you two, it's not really my place to interfere. I'll just head out now. You guys take your time. Wait, I called out. I stared at him with a playful glint in my eyes. Sang Biao froze, his heart clearly in his throat. Young hero, do you have more instructions for me? Your brothers are all lying on the ground bleeding, I said. Leaving them behind as their boss seems a bit cold, don't you think? What should I do then? It's simple, I said, pointing a finger at Manager Mo. Beat him for me. Keep going until he tells me exactly who ordered him to frame the company. I knew Yang Ruobing's company had no history with Mo. Someone was using him as a pawn. Nobody ordered me. Mo shouted immediately. He was clearly terrified of whoever was behind him. I wonder which is harder, I mused, your mouth or this brick? Biao, right? Use this. Beat it out of him. I tossed a brick to Sang Biao. He caught it clumsily. To avoid getting thrashed himself, he decided to take his frustration out on the manager. He turned toward Mo with a murderous expression. Mo, be smart, Biao growled. Spit it out, or I'll crack your skull open. Nobody still playing tough? Biao roared. He didn't hold back. He rained blows down on Mo, using the brick like a hammer. Mo was just an ordinary office guy. He couldn't handle that kind of brutality. Within seconds, his face was a mask of blood. Stop! Stop! Mo wailed, shielding his head. I'll talk. I'll talk. Speak up, damn it. Biao barked. It's Zhang Yishan. Mo gasped, blood leaking from his forehead. He's the one who told me to set up Yang Ruobing. Zhang Yishan. I narrowed my eyes, a trace of killing intent leaking out. I had already crippled his son, Zhang Zijian. It made perfect sense that the father would come after my wife's company in the shadows. Young hero, Sang Biao whispered, looking at me tentatively. I did what you asked. Can I? Your name is Biao, right? No. Just call me Little Biao. I don't deserve the title of boss in front of you. I'll let you go today, I said coldly. But if I ever catch you doing this kind of dirt again, I'll finish what I started. Understand? I understand. I'll never do it again. He nodded frantically. Get out. Sang Biao didn't need to be told twice. He bolted out of there faster than an Olympic sprinter. Now it was just me and the bleeding Manager Mo. He was shaking so hard, he couldn't even move. I told you everything. Can you let me go now? Let you go? Do you have any idea how many women's faces you ruined with that trash? I stared him down, my voice icy. How much are you going to pay in damages? 10,000. I shook my head. 20,000. I kept shaking my head. 30,000. Mo gritted his teeth, looking like he was offering his soul. I pulled a pack of cheap cigarettes from my pocket and clicked my lighter. I took a long drag and blew a cloud of smoke directly into his face. Manager Mo, do I look like a beggar to you? No, not at all. Then why are you offering me pocket change? I snapped. I delivered a sharp kick to his ribs. Mo let out a piercing scream, his face contorting as the veins in his neck popped out. 80,000. That's all I have. I can't give any more. 80,000 is an awkward number, I said casually. Let's round it up. 1 million. What? A million? You have a problem with that? I asked, tapping the brick against my palm. No problem, he whimpered. He was dying inside, but facing a man with a brick, he didn't have much of a choice. Later that evening, around 7:30 p.m., I sat in a luxury private suite at the Pearl Hotel. Manager Mo sat next to me, looking like a nervous wreck. He had set up a meeting with Zhang Yishan. "Don't be so tense, Mo," I said, patting his shoulder. The movement made him wince in pain. "I know who the real enemy is. I don't blame you." "Thank you, Brother Hao," he stammered, though I'm sure he was cursing my ancestors in his head. He thought paying the million would be the end of it, but I had forced him to lure Zhang Yishan out. In this city, everyone knew the power of the Zhang family. Betraying them was a death sentence. There was a knock at the door. A waiter led a middle-aged man into the room. He was fat and walked with a heavy limp, leaning on a cane. The moment he saw me, he froze. He would recognize me even if I turned to ash. I was the man who had crippled his legs years ago. "You?" Zhang Yishan's face went pale. His cane trembled in his hand. "Old Zhang," I said, leaning back with a smirk. "It's been a while. How've you been?" "Good. Very good," he managed to say, though he was clearly struggling to process the shock. "Brother Hao, why did you want to see me?" "Manager Mo tells me you're the one behind the scheme to ruin my wife's company," I said, my eyes turning sharp. "You bastard. You betrayed me." Zhang Yishan roared at Mo. "Don't blame me," Mo cried out, pointing to his bruised and bloodied face. "I didn't have a choice." Zhang Yishan glared at him before turning back to me, his mind racing for a way out. "So, old Zhang," I said, crossing my legs, "you tried to destroy my family's business. How do you plan to settle this debt?" Zhang Yishan's fear suddenly turned into a flash of desperate rage. "Settle the debt? You have the nerve to talk to me about settling debts? You broke my legs years ago. You ruined my son's future. I haven't even settled my score with you yet. So you're going to play it that way?" I didn't hesitate. I stood up and flipped the entire heavy dining table over with one hand. Dishes and glassware shattered into a million pieces across the floor. I stepped over the wreckage and grabbed him by the collar. "You tried to sneak around and ruin me, and now you want to act tough?" I grabbed Zhang Yishan by the collar, my eyes boring into his. He was trembling. I could feel the cold sweat soaking through his shirt. "Old Zhang," I whispered, my voice cold as ice. "If you don't want to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair, you'd better apologize to me right now. Otherwise," I let out a low, dark chuckle. The threat hung in the air, thick and heavy. Zhang Yishan's blood pressure must have been hitting the ceiling. His face turned a deep, angry purple. He remembered what I was capable of. He remembered the ruthlessness I'd shown years ago, and the fear was written all over his face. He knew he couldn't win this. If paying a little money could buy his safety, he had to take the deal. "Fine. Fine, Brother Hao," he stammered, his voice cracking. "It was my fault. I shouldn't have tried to sabotage the Qiao family business. You're a big man. Please, just forgive me." I smiled, satisfied. Apology accepted. "Now, let's talk about compensation." I leaned in closer. "That low-quality mask scandal ruined my wife's company reputation. You're going to pay $3 million in damages. Also, tomorrow, you'll have Manager Mo go in front of the media, admit everything, and compensate the consumers. Any objections?" $3 million. I saw the physical pain flash in Zhang Yishan's eyes. That was a massive hit to his wallet. But he looked at me, saw the lack of mercy in my expression, and slumped his shoulders. No objections," he muttered. Spoken like a true boss. "Old Zhang, you really are generous." I laughed, slapping him on the back. I gave him my bank details, and within minutes, the transfer notification popped up on my phone. My mood instantly soared. I gave his shoulder one last heavy pat. "Don't make such a rookie mistake again, old Zhang. I'm letting you slide today. But if there's a next time, you'll be trading those legs for wheels permanently." "There won't be a next time," he promised quickly. But as I walked away, I knew what he was thinking. I could feel his glare burning into my back. He wanted revenge. But he was a small fish in a very large pond. By 8 o'clock that night, I walked back into the villa. Yang Ruobing was sitting in the living room, her face buried in her hands. She looked exhausted. Even though she'd managed to calm the angry customers today, the company had already bled over $1 million in refunds. To make matters worse, she'd tried to track down Manager Mo, only to find his office empty. He'd vanished. She realized she'd been scammed, and she felt helpless. "Wife, have you eaten yet?" I asked cheerfully. "I have no appetite," she snapped without looking up. "You have to eat," I teased, walking over to her. "If you get hungry, your husband's heart will break." She looked up, her eyes icy. Yahello, look at what's happening. How can you still be in the mood to joke? I blinked, surprised by the intensity of her anger. She sighed, her shoulders dropping. I'm sorry. My mind is a mess. I didn't mean to snap at you. Are you still worried about what happened this morning? I asked gently. What do you think? She sighed. There's nothing to worry about, I said, shrugging with a smirk. As the saying goes, things have a way of working themselves out. Who knows? Maybe tomorrow the person responsible will step forward, admit they were wrong, and pay for everything. She narrowed her eyes at me. What are you talking about? Tell you what, wife. Let's make a bet, I said, winking at her. A bet on what? If someone comes forward tomorrow to take responsibility and pay the damages, you have to give me a kiss. She rolled her eyes. You're a rogue. Hey, haven't you heard? Bad boys get the girls. I countered, trying to provoke her. Unless you're afraid to lose? Afraid? She almost laughed. To her, this bet was a guaranteed win. Who would be stupid enough to come back and pay $1 million debt after they'd already escaped? Fine. It's a bet. If you win, I'll kiss you. But what if you lose? Then I'll kiss you instead. I grinned. Go to hell, she shouted, throwing a sofa cushion at my head. The next morning was bright and sunny, but for Yang, it felt like the start of a nightmare. She drove to the office expecting a mob of angry protesters at the gate. To her shock, the entrance was empty. She sat at her desk, trying to figure out a move, when her assistant, Zhao Ying, burst into the room. She wasn't crying. She was beaming. President Yang. Quick, turn on the morning news. What happened? Yang asked, confused. Just watch. You don't want to miss this. Yang frowned and opened the live stream on her computer. There, on the screen, was Manager Mo. He was standing in front of a swarm of reporters, bowing deeply, publicly apologizing for the faulty masks, and promising to cover every cent of the compensation. Yang froze. Her jaw practically hit the desk. He's actually taking responsibility? We got so lucky, President Yang. Zhao cheered. I can't believe he actually came back. It's a miracle. I don't know, Yang whispered. Her mind flashed back to our bet from the night before. Her face started to turn a soft shade of pink. Wait, President Yang, why is your face so red? Zhao asked. Oh, I ran up the stairs too fast, she lied quickly. Once Zhao left, Yang sat back, her heart racing. I had been gone all day yesterday. Then I came home and made that specific bet. She wasn't a fool. She knew I had something to do with this. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. I didn't even wait for her to answer. I walked in and clicked the lock behind me. Hey, wife. Busy. I grinned, leaning against the door. Yahello, I told you 1,000 times, don't call me that at the office, she hissed, her face flushing deeper. Don't worry, the soundproofing in here is great, I said, walking toward her desk. So, about our bet. She bit her lip, trying to look stern. We can talk about this at home. Why wait? No one's here, I said, spreading my arms and plopping down on her office sofa. I crossed my legs and gave her a look of pure mischief. I'm not leaving until I get my prize. Yahello, please, she pleaded, her voice dropping. Can we just do this at home? At home? Sure, I said, nodding thoughtfully. But the price just went up. If we wait until we're home, it's 2 kisses. 3 kisses, I interrupted. Don't push it, she snapped. For kisses, I said, my grin widening. You're horrible, she cried, but I could see the defeat in her eyes. I had her, and we both knew it. I stayed right where I was, refusing to budge. If she wanted to play hardball, I could play harder. For kisses it is, I said firmly. Yang looked like she wanted to grind her teeth into powder. Facing my shameless persistence, she realized she was completely powerless. She had missed her chance to agree early, and now the price had doubled. Fine, she hissed, trying to regain her composure. If you don't have anything else to do, get out. I'm busy. In an instant, the icy CEO persona was back. The coldness returned to her eyes as if our little negotiation had never happened. All right, I said, pushing off the sofa and heading for the door. I gave her a playful wink over my shoulder. Just remember tonight. For times. Don't forget. I swaggered out of the office, leaving her sitting there with a faint, bitter smile on her lips. She muttered something under her breath about me being a freak. acting like nothing happened even though I'd clearly stepped in to help her business. Back at my desk, I returned to my primary work responsibility, playing Fight the Landlord on my phone. Zhaoying watched me from across the office, her eyes filled with disbelief. She couldn't wrap her head around why a strict boss like Yang Ruobing would tolerate a guy like me just coasting through the day, eating and drinking on the company's dime. Honestly, Yahello, don't you feel bad? Zhaoying asked, her voice laced with judgment. Just sitting there being idle all day? Idle? Please, I said without looking up from my screen. This is called balancing work and rest. Balance my foot. You're just lazy, she snapped. You're not getting any younger. If you keep drifting through life like this, how are you ever going to find a wife? I chuckled. Hey, don't worry about me. You should worry about yourself. At this rate, you'll be the one begging me for help when you can't find a boyfriend. I would never beg you for anything. You're annoying, she huffed. The truth was, Zhaoying was under a lot of pressure from her family to get married. She hadn't found anyone she liked yet, so she spent most of her time making up excuses to avoid the subject. I just happened to be the guy poking her right where it hurt. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a call from her old college roommate, Li Xiaoli. Hey, Ying, it's Xiaoli. The voice chirped on the other end. Xiaoli? Wow, it's been a while. Why are you calling so suddenly? Zhaoying asked, her tone softening. I've got great news. We're having a college reunion tomorrow night right here in Jiangxing. You have to come. And guess what? Zhu Xiaobiao is going to be there too. I heard he's doing really well for himself since graduation. He chased you for so long back then. You should at least give him a chance now, right? Zhao Ying's face fell. Xiaoli, stop talking nonsense. I never liked him. Just kidding. Anyway, see you at 7:30 tomorrow at the Xiaoming Hotel. Don't be late. Before Zhao Ying could protest, the line went dead. She stared at her phone in frustration. It had been years since graduation, and that guy Zhu Xiaobiao still hadn't given up. She needed a plan. She needed a fake boyfriend to make him back off for good. But where was she supposed to find someone on such short notice? Right then, I let out a loud shout of excitement. Haha, King Bomb. Spring. I win. Zhaoying froze. She looked over at me, and a light bulb went off in her head. They say you can search 1,000 times for someone, only to find them standing right under the lamp. My sudden, obnoxious celebration was exactly the wake-up call she needed. She started staring at me. The more she looked, the more she realized I was actually the perfect candidate. I was already here, I was shameless, and I was available. I felt her eyes on me and glanced sideways. Whoa, sister. Why are you looking at me like that? Don't tell me you've finally fallen for me. In your dreams, she said, rolling her eyes. She hesitated for a second, then bit her lip. Actually, are you free tomorrow night? I raised an eyebrow. Oh, are you asking me out? Well, yes, she admitted. Sorry, I'm busy, I said, shrugging. I knew how the world worked. When someone who usually dislikes you suddenly gets friendly, they're usually looking to use you. Yahello, plenty of people want to date me, she yelled, her voice rising in indignation. You didn't even think about it. You just rejected me instantly? That's way too much. She was a beautiful woman, and being shut down so fast bruised her ego. Her loud voice caught the attention of everyone in the office. Wait, Yahello, did you seriously just turn down a date with Zhao Ying? One of the other employees asked, stunned. Most guys would kill for that chance. I leaned back in my chair, looking bored. What's the big deal? She's clearly obsessed with me. But I'm a man of principle. I have goals, ideals, and ambition. I can't just say yes to every girl who falls for me. I'm not that easy. Obsessed? I wouldn't date you if you were the last man on earth. Zhao Ying screamed, her face turning a bright shade of red. You say you're not easy, but when you get going, you're barely human. Whatever. I'm busy. Find someone else, I said, turning my attention back to my game. Zhao Ying stomped her foot, fuming. She couldn't believe I was ignoring her for a mobile card game. The rest of the day crawled by. As soon as the clock hit quitting time, I punched out and headed for the exit. I hadn't gone far when I heard a familiar voice shouting behind me. Yahello, wait up. I stopped inside. Zhao Ying, look. I told you, I'm busy tomorrow. Why are you following me? I know I'm handsome, but this is getting a bit desperate. I'm not following you, she snapped. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, then lowered her voice. Look, just help me this once, okay? It's my college reunion. There's this guy who won't leave me alone. So you want me to be your fake boyfriend? I asked, cutting straight to the chase. Yes. Will you help me? No. Why not? We're colleagues. You're really going to just watch me suffer? She asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. I gave her a smug grin. I don't know. Who was it that said this morning they would never beg me for anything? You. She stomped her foot again, looking completely cornered. She knew she had walked right into that one. Seeing that the tough act wasn't working, she shifted gears. She decided to go all in. She reached out, grabbed my arm, and started shaking it gently. She leaned in close, her voice turning soft and sweet, a total 180 from her usual self. Come on, big brother. Just help me out this once. I know you have a good heart. And you're so handsome, too. She cooed, giving me a smile that could melt stone. I felt a shiver go down my spine. This woman was dangerous when she turned on the charm. Her voice was like honey, making my head spin for a second. Whoa, sister, take it easy, I said, trying to stay firm. Men and women shouldn't be this close. If another girl sees us, you'll ruin my reputation. Please, help your little sister out, she pleaded, her voice dropping to a whisper. No, please, not a chance. Enough? Yahello, she yelled, her patience finally snapping. Tell me the truth. What is it going to take for you to help me? Zhaoing snapped. She brushed my hand off her arm and planted her hands on her slim waist, glaring at me with genuine frustration. Look, sister, I'm willing to help, I said, my eyes twinkling as I gave her a meaningful look. But I seem to remember being late and leaving early a few times this past week. I wonder how that will look on my record. Zhaoing handled the company attendance. She caught my drift instantly. You want me to mark you down for full attendance? Exactly, I said with a wicked grin. As long as my salary doesn't get docked, I'm your man. She looked at me, completely stunned. That's it. That's all you want. Of course, unless you were hoping I'd ask for something more intimate. We are colleagues, after all, but I have a reputation to protect, I teased. Get lost, she barked, rolling her eyes. I could tell she was baffled. Most guys would jump at the chance to date a beauty like her, yet here I was, bargaining over a perfect attendance bonus. She probably thought I was the biggest weirdo in China. What she didn't know was that I actually wanted to help. Any guy who made Zhaoing this uncomfortable probably deserved a lesson, and the extra cash was just a nice cherry on top. Half an hour later, I pulled up to the villa. Yang Ruobing was in the living room, sitting elegantly on the sofa with her legs crossed. Even in a casual setting, she looked like a queen. Hey honey, I'm home, I called out. I walked over and plopped down right next to her. She immediately slid away, looking at me like I was a stray dog. Why are you sitting so close? Didn't you say you'd kiss me when we got home? I closed my eyes and leaned in, wearing a thick-skinned expression. Go ahead. Don't hold back just because I'm a delicate flower. Do your worst. I heard her fist clench against a pillow. She stared at me for a long time, her breath hitching as she tried to suppress her temper. You are incredibly thick-skinned, she finally hissed through gritted teeth. I try my best. I chuckled, completely unfazed. She sighed, realizing that getting angry at me was a losing battle. I want to ask you something. About the skincare masks. Were you the one helping me behind the scenes? I opened one eye. You really want to know? Yes. Kiss me, and I'll tell you. She gripped her cushion so hard I thought it might explode. She turned her face away, her expression turning icy. Fine. If you won't say it, forget it. Wait, you're giving up that easily? Yes, it was me. Why did you do it? She asked. Kiss me, and I'll tell you. Yahello, go to hell. She lost it. She grabbed the pillow and started pummeling me with it. Help. Murder. My own wife is trying to kill me. I yelled, feigning agony. She threw the pillow aside and sat back down, huffing. You're exhausting. Now that you've had your fun beating me, how about that kiss? I asked playfully. I'm not in the mood. Maybe later. Hey, you're backing out? Don't you know that being fickle is a woman's worst trait? She crossed her arms, a small, triumphant smirk playing on her lips. I'm fine with that. I pointed a finger at her, speechless for a moment. Seeing her actually enjoy my frustration was a rare sight. I didn't mind, though. There was plenty of time for a comeback. Anyway, I said, turning serious. Have you thought about opening your own factory to produce whitening products? Relying on other brands is dangerous. You'll just get screwed over again. I've thought about it, she admitted. But a factory needs capital, a site, and most importantly, a formula. I have one, I said. An ancient herbal formula for skin whitening. All natural, zero side effects. She stared at me, skeptical. Where did you get a formula like that? It's a family heirloom, I lied. I wasn't about to tell her I was the 9th-generation successor of a legendary medical sect. I wanted a quiet life, and that meant keeping my past buried. Let me test it, she said, her business instincts kicking in. If it works, I'll take out a bank loan to start the factory myself. Wait here. I grabbed the keys to her Audi Q7 and headed to a nearby pharmacy. 30 minutes later, I was back with a bag of herbs. I ground them into a fine powder, mixed them with a specific liquid base, and stirred until it became a fragrant, translucent paste. It smells so fresh, she remarked, looking surprised. Give me your hand, I instructed. She held out her slim, white hand. I took it in mine. Her skin was incredibly soft, like fine silk. I couldn't help but let my palm linger a little too long, feeling the warmth of her skin. Slap. Be serious, she warned, though she didn't pull away. Sorry, honey. Your skin is just too smooth. I carefully applied the paste to the back of her hand. She shivered slightly. It feels cool, like it's actually soaking in. Just wait. The best part is coming. After 20 minutes, the paste had dried into a mask. I peeled it off and stepped back. Check it out. Yang Ruobing gasped. The hand I had treated was visibly brighter and smoother than the other. The difference was night and day. This is incredible, she whispered. Are the ingredients expensive? The cost for that batch? Maybe $10 or $20. Her eyes lit up. As a CEO, she saw the profit margins immediately. A mask this effective could sell for hundreds. We can definitely do this. I heard there are a few local skincare factories on the verge of bankruptcy. We should look into buying one at auction. Whatever you say, boss. She looked at me then, her gaze searching, as if seeing me for the first time. Who are you, really? You can fight like a monster, and you know ancient medicine. I feel like I don't know my own husband at all. You really want to know? I asked, leaning in close. Yes. Kiss me and I'll. Forget I asked, she yelled, standing up and marching toward the stairs. Hey, where are you going? We were just getting to the good part. I wasn't even finished talking. I was mid-sentence when Yang Ruobing stood up, grabbed the herbal powder, and headed upstairs. She was actually going to use it as a mask. Throwing that stuff away would have been a crime. Hey, I called out, remembering something important. Can I borrow your Audi Q7 tomorrow night? I needed to show off a little. She stopped dead on the stairs. She didn't turn around. Earlier that day, she'd overheard Zhao Ying in the office asking me out. Even though our marriage was a total sham, I could tell something was off. Her voice sounded cold, but there was a hint of something else buried underneath. Going on a date? She asked. What's the problem? You're not jealous, are you? I teased. Besides, we had a deal. No interfering in each other's private lives. The keys are in the drawer, she said, her face expressionless. She walked straight into her room without another word. I caught a glimpse of her silhouette before the door closed. She looked almost disappointed. I scratched my head, feeling genuinely confused. She was fine a second ago. Women really are a mystery. The next evening arrived. Zhao Ying had been texting me all day, reminding me not to be late for her college reunion. Around 7, I crawled out of my place, looking surprisingly decent. I'd swapped my usual rags for a clean set of casual clothes and actually brushed my hair. I didn't want to embarrass her. The party was held in a luxury private room at a high-end hotel. It was filled with people in their mid-20s, most of them looking like the typical office drones who'd been beaten down by a few years in the real world. Then there was the class president, Zhu Xiaobiao. He was dressed in a suit so sharp it could cut glass, and his black leather shoes were polished to a mirror's shine. He looked like he was trying way too hard to be a corporate executive. Xiao Ying, Zhu Xiaobiao said, his voice dripping with fake confidence. I heard you're still at that small company. My firm needs an assistant. Come work for me. The pay will be way better than whatever you're making now. Thanks, but I'm happy where I am, Zhao Ying replied with a polite smile. Are you sure? Think about it. I'm sure. I'm not looking to jump ship right now. Zhu Xiaobiao's smile twitched. He wasn't used to being told no, but he tried to keep his gentleman mask on. The rest of the class started huddling around, teasing her. Xiaoying, don't you get it? The president is chasing you. Zhu Xiaobiao gave a modest laugh, but his chest puffed out an inch. He figured if he got her into his office, she'd be his in no time. But then, Xiaoying dropped a bomb. Actually, the main reason I won't leave is because my boyfriend works there too. The room went silent. The campus queen had a boyfriend? And he was a co-worker? Zhu Xiaobiao's eyes flashed with anger, though he hid it well behind a fake grin. Where is he then? Why isn't he here? Someone asked, itching for gossip. He should be here any second, Xiaoying said, checking her watch. Right on cue, there was a knock at the door. I think that's him. The door opened. A waitress in a black cheongsam led me inside. I walked in with a lazy, effortless stride. I could feel every eye in the room on me. My face was rugged, my eyes held a depth that spoke of a dark past, and my slightly messy hair gave me a bit of a bad boy vibe. Hello everyone, I said, flashing a charming grin. I'm Yahello, Zhao Ying's boyfriend. The girls in the room started whispering immediately. Wow, he's so handsome. Xiaoying, you're so stingy, keeping a guy like this a secret. Zhao Ying's face turned a lovely shade of pink. She stole a glance at me, looking a bit surprised herself. I guess I cleaned up better than she expected. I sat down right next to her and immediately took her soft hand in mine. Sorry I'm late, sweetheart, I said, sounding incredibly sincere. Oh my God, you two are so cute together, her friend squealed. Xiaoying forced a smile. She couldn't exactly pull her hand away in front of everyone. She leaned in close, whispering through gritted teeth. You pervert. Are you trying to die? Stop touching me. Shoo. I whispered back, nodding slightly toward the side. Don't look now, but someone is burning a hole in my head with his eyes. If we don't look in love, the act is over. She glanced over and saw Zhu Xiaobiao staring at us with a face like thunder. She sighed, her face turning even redder. Fine. I'll let it slide this once. I thought she'd be okay with just holding hands, but I couldn't resist. I started tracing circles on her palm with my thumb. She stiffened, her face turning bright red, but every time she tried to glare at me, I was busy talking to someone else. My thumb kept moving. The food arrived and the alcohol started flowing. The atmosphere got loud as everyone reminisced about college. Zhu Xiaobiao sat there like a statue, barely speaking. He was miserable, and I was enjoying every second of it. Suddenly, a few girls who had gone to the restroom started screaming. A girl named Xiao Li ran back into the room, pale and shaking. Help! There are some drunk guys outside harassing the girls. What? Who does that? The guys in the room shouted, acting tough. But before anyone could move, a group of thugs burst into the room. These weren't your average drunks. They wore tank tops, their arms were covered in tattoos, and one guy had a nasty scar running down his face. Which one of you punks was talking trash? A massive, muscular guy yelled, reeking of cheap liquor. The tough guys in our room went dead silent. The girl who had been grabbed looked at our class president with tears in her eyes. President, please help me. Zhu Xiaobiao looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. But everyone was watching, so he had to stand up. Gentlemen, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I'm sure there's a misunderstanding. If my classmate offended you, I apologize. Misunderstanding? The big guy pointed at the girl. This bitch bumped into me and didn't apologize. Then she had the nerve to slap me. He tried to grope me, the girl cried out. I only slapped him because he wouldn't let go. Look, there must be a misunderstanding, Zhu Xiaobiao said, a greasy smile plastered on his face. How about I buy you a drink? Let's be friends. Friends with your mother, the big man roared. He was drunk, his brain fueled by liquid courage. Without warning, he swung his hand and landed a thunderous slap right across Zhu Xiaobiao's face. The sound echoed through the room, followed by a loud smack. You, how could you hit me? Zhu Xiaobiao stammered, his cheek burning like it had been touched by a branding iron. The pain was bad, but the humiliation was worse. He had been slapped in front of the entire class. His dignity was in tatters. He was furious, but he was also terrified. These thugs weren't people he could mess with. The big guy grabbed Zhu Xiaobiao by the collar, pulling him close. I hit you because you're a shameless brat. So what? I'm one of Brother Biao's men. Who are you going to tell? Zhu Xiaobiao's eyes widened. He trembled. Brother Biao? You mean? Sang Biao. The thug paused. Oh, you know my boss. I do. I do. Zhu Xiaobiao shouted, desperate to save himself. My name is Zhu Xiaobiao. I had dinner with Brother Biao just the other day. In reality, they had shared a table once, but Sang Biao hadn't even looked at him. Zhu Xiaobiao didn't care about the truth right now. He just needed to survive and get some of his face back. Is that so? The thug asked, suspicious. I swear. If you don't believe me, call him. We're on the same side here. It's all a big mistake. Zhu Xiaobiao forced a laugh, trying to look like he belonged. The thug growled. Fine. But if I find out you're lying to me, I'll kill you myself. He asked for Zhu Xiaobiao's full name and dialed the number. The room went silent as the phone rang. Finally, a voice picked up. Qiangzi? What is it? It was Sang Biao. Boss, there's a guy here named Zhu Xiaobiao. He says he knows you. Is that true? There was a long pause. Zhu Xiaobiao? Who the hell is that? Never heard of him. The color drained from Zhu Xiaobiao's face. He froze. You're dead meat. Qiangzi screamed. You dare to trick me? Eat this. He wound up and delivered another massive slap. Crack. Zhu Xiaobiao saw stars. He stumbled back, nearly collapsing. If a classmate hadn't caught him, he would have hit the floor. Is there no law anymore? Shaoli shouted, her anger finally boiling over. If you don't leave, we're calling the police. Qiangzi turned his bloodshot eyes on her. Oh, a feisty one. You're coming with me for a drink. Move. He reached out to grab her, but Zhaoing stepped in his way. She didn't hesitate. She swung her hand and slapped Qiangzi across the face. The room gasped. A red handprint bloomed on the thug's cheek. Qiangzi's eyes turned murderous. He looked like a demon. You bitch, he hissed. You dare hit me? I'm going to beat you to death. He raised his hand high, ready to strike Zhaoing with everything he had. Zhaoing flinched, closing her eyes and pulling her head back, waiting for the impact. But the blow never came. A dark shadow suddenly moved in front of her. A second later, a bone-chilling scream tore through the room. It wasn't Zhaoing. It was Qiangzi. Buddy, what kind of man hits a woman? The voice was lazy and casual, yet it carried an underlying chill that made everyone's skin crawl. Yahello? Zhaoing opened her eyes. She saw me standing there, shielding her. For a moment, she just stared at me, her eyes filled with shock and a hint of something else. You grandson of a bitch. Qiangzi screamed, his wrist locked in my grip. Let go of my hand, or I'll arg. Stop. Don't. It hurts. Say one more word, I said, tightening my grip. Big brother. Please. Let go. My hand is breaking. He was crying now, his tough guy act completely gone. Get lost, I said. I kicked him squarely in the chest. He flew backward, crashing into his friends. If they hadn't been there to catch him, he would have been knocked unconscious against the wall. Brother Chong, the other thugs yelled, helping him up. What are you idiots waiting for? Qiangzi roared, clutching his chest. Kill him. Kill this bastard. The thugs charged. The girls in the room screamed and scrambled back. I didn't move an inch. Instead, I reached down and grabbed 2 beer bottles by the necks. I didn't wait for them to reach me. I stepped forward, swinging both bottles in a wide arc. Asterisk smash. Smash. Asterisk. 2 thugs went down instantly, blood pouring from their heads. A third guy tried to sneak up behind me, raising a bottle to crush my skull. Die, he screamed. But he stopped mid-swing. His eyes went wide with terror. I was holding the jagged, broken end of a beer bottle right against his throat. The sharp glass was already nicking his skin. A thin line of blood trickled down. The guy started sweating buckets. His face turned pale. What were you planning to do? I asked, my voice cold. Hit me from behind. The look in my eyes must have been terrifying. The guy looked like he was about to have a heart attack. And my mother. Is this even a human's eyes? He whispered. I wasn't going to hit you, big brother, he stammered. I was just practicing my iron head technique. Watch. He took his own bottle and smashed it over his own head. Crash. Glass flew everywhere. His eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed, out cold. In just a few seconds, I had taken down 3 of them. Qiangzi was shaking with rage. You're finished. I'm Brother Biao's man. He'll kill you for this. Brother Biao. I laughed. Call Sang Biao right now. Tell him Yahello is looking for him. Fine. Don't you run away. I'm calling him. Qiangzi dialed the number again. Qiangzi. What now? Sang Biao's voice was full of irritation. Stop calling me. Boss, we got beaten up. You have to help us. Who would dare touch my men? Sang Biao growled. His name is Yahello. What did you say? Say that name again. Yahello. There was a dead silence on the other end. Yahello? You mean Brother Hao? Sang Biao sounded like he'd seen a ghost. He would never forget the man who had once systematically dismantled a room full of people with nothing but a brick. I reached out and snatched the phone from Qiangzi's hand. Brother Biao, I said playfully. I had a little disagreement with your boys. I might have been a bit rough. My bad. Hao Gu. Please, don't call me Brother Biao. You'll shorten my life. Just call me Little Biao. Sang Biao sounded like a terrified mouse. Please, give the phone back to my subordinate. I need to have a word with him. I tossed the phone back to Qiangzi. Here, it's for you. Qiangzi caught it with trembling hands. Boss. The next second, Sang Biao's voice exploded from the speaker, loud enough for the whole room to hear. Qiangzi, you blind idiot. You dared to cross Hao Gu? Apologize to him right now. If he's even slightly unhappy, I'll personally throw you into the Jiangxing River tonight. Qiangzi stood there, frozen. His world had just collapsed. Even his own boss had to call me Brother Hao. Qiangzi finally realized he had messed with the wrong person. His legs turned to jelly, and he hit the ground with a heavy thud. He knelt there, trembling, and started begging for mercy. He called me Brother Hao and pleaded for his life. I just gave him a cold, disdainful smile. Being low-key was always the best way to handle things, but since he'd pushed it this far, I wasn't going to let him off that easily. I pointed toward the female classmate he had been harassing earlier. I told him that begging me was useless because she was the one he had offended. Qiangzi didn't hesitate. He crawled toward her, apologizing profusely. He started slapping his own face, hard, over and over again, calling himself trash and begging for her forgiveness. The girl didn't want to cause a bigger scene. She looked a bit shaken and told him to just leave and never show his face around her again. It was like a death row inmate getting a sudden pardon. Qiangzi scrambled to his feet, gathered his bruised henchmen, and they practically crawled away from the scene. Once the thugs were gone, everyone in the room let out a collective breath of relief. But when they looked at me now, their eyes were different. They had just seen two different versions of a hero saving a beauty. Zhu Xiaobiao had been slapped twice and didn't dare to utter a word. Meanwhile, I had barely lifted a finger and had these gangsters shaking in their boots. The contrast was embarrassing. The whispers started immediately. Some wondered if I was a secret martial arts star, claiming I fought better than Jet Li. Zhao Ying's classmates started teasing her, telling her how handsome her boyfriend was and joking that she should let them know if we ever broke up. Zhao Ying's face turned a lovely shade of crimson. She told them to shut up, but I could see the hidden pride in her eyes. Zhu Xiaobiao's expression, on the other hand, was getting uglier by the second. Nothing hurts more than a direct comparison. He had been treated like a dog, while his rival had treated the aggressors like dogs. Every time someone laughed, he felt like they were mocking him. If it weren't for the fact that this was a class reunion, he would have bolted out the door. His hatred for me was festering, turning into something dark. The little drama didn't ruin the party. If anything, my role as the fake boyfriend had given Zhao Ying a massive amount of face. An hour later, the bill was settled and everyone started to head out. As they say, a man lives for his pride. Zhu Xiaobiao was desperate to win back some dignity. He saw Zhao Ying and me standing by the entrance, looking like we were waiting for a taxi. He thought this was his moment. He pulled up in his brand new Toyota Camry, revving the engine to get everyone's attention. The crowd gathered around. Some of the guys, who were mostly struggling office workers, were genuinely impressed. They started praising him, noting that a Camry cost at least 200,000 yuan. Zhu Xiaobiao leaned back in his seat, acting modest but failing miserably. He told them it wasn't that expensive, only about 280,000 including the plates. He called it a decent enough car to get around in. One of the classmates asked for a ride, and Zhu Xiaobiao acted generous, telling them to hop in. But his eyes were on Zhao Ying. He asked her where she was going and offered to drop her off. Zhao Ying shook her head immediately. She hated this kind of blatant showing off. She told him we'd just take a taxi. Zhu Xiaobiao wasn't giving up. He pointed out how hard it was to get a cab at this hour and mentioned there was exactly one seat left in his car. His message was clear. He would take Zhao Ying, but I was on my own. Zhao Ying's face soured. She could hear the spite in his voice. She politely declined again, insisting she'd stay with me. Zhu Xiaobiao turned his sights on me, feigning concern. He asked me if I really wanted to make the school flower ride in a smelly taxi. He told me not to mistreat her. I just let a small smirk play on my lips. I told him it was fine because I had brought my own car. Zhaoying looked at me, surprised. She whispered, asking me where I got a car. She clearly didn't think I owned one. Zhu Xiaobiao overheard her and laughed internally, convinced I was just a broke loser posturing. He mocked me, asking if it was some cheap mini car or a knockoff brand. I shook my head and told him it wasn't a knockoff. He challenged me to show everyone, his arrogance reaching a peak. I didn't say another word. I just reached into my pocket and pressed the remote. Beep beep. The lights of a car parked in a dark corner flashed. Everyone turned to look. Their jaws hit the floor. It was an Audi Q7, a luxury edition. That car was worth at least 800,000 yuan. The silence was deafening. They thought I was just some average guy, but I was rolling in a beast of an SUV. This was the definition of playing it cool. A few minutes later, I drove off with Zhao Ying in the Q7, leaving everyone behind. Zhu Xiaobiao stood there, his hands gripping his steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. It was a slap to the face he couldn't fight back against. He had tried to show off his wealth, only to be overshadowed by a car 3 times the price of his. His pride was in tatters, and his resentment toward me hit a breaking point. He muttered to himself that this wasn't over. Meanwhile, inside the car, Zhaoying was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. She called me a bad person for using President Yang's car to show off. She had recognized the license plate immediately, but hadn't said a word to ruin the act. I grinned, telling her that if we were going to put on a show, we had to go all out. She asked how I managed to get Yang Ruobing to lend me the car. I told her it wasn't a loan. I was renting it for 1,000 yuan a night. I called our boss black-hearted for charging me so much. I had to throw my wife under the bus to keep our secret safe. Zhaoying defended her, saying 1,000 yuan wasn't that bad for a car like this. I joked that if she felt that way, she should reimburse me for the rental fee. She just laughed and told me to get lost.